Right now, if you go to China and you're not special, you get a Q-tip up your butthole. And what they do with that Q-tip that went up your butthole, they
Sounds
put
fun.
it in a database and they track your DNA.
Strings, did you
DNA.
get lost in the butthole? He wants to talk about Q-tips and buttholes. That's exactly what he's going to fucking do. All right, let's give this a try. Hello, everyone. Thanks for all for being here. Thanks for stopping.
So we're all here waiting for you.
Yeah. Thank you for being here. Hold on, I'm gonna have to go down this list because do not yet recognize everyone's names. Thank you for being here, Clearest, Samantha Banana, Eagle Eye Valor, our illustrious editor. For our YouTube channel that we were just talking about, Evan, they, them.
Yes.
Yes. Who? But anyway, Ivan, thank you for being here. Friday Living, thanks for coming back from yesterday. It was really nice having you. Saucy Sam as well. Thank you for stopping by. Smugpug, and our illustrious mod, or MVP of a mod, honestly. Sneaky Debate Man, not quite the most valuable, but you know. He's there. He's on the list of mods. But really appreciate you, buddy. And we really get to see you these days. You're looking good with your hair down like that. Holy crap.
I've been telling him that all night.
Yeah, it looks really good. Stardust, thanks for coming by. And you have beautiful hair too. Just putting that out there.
Oh. Yeah.
Phoebe Glad and Tiffany, thanks all for being here. Okay.
My pleasure. Is my hair sexy too?
Yes, it looks very nice. Everyone's
I
hair
was
looks
just
amazing.
My hair nice.
Everyone's hair is beautiful. Okay. Everyone's hair is beautiful. But yeah, so thanks all for stopping by. Is there anything you all in particular want to talk about?
Well, we kind of did.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't able to be on the panel tonight because I had obligations. I really wanted to be. So I'm kind of curious what the topics were. I missed a lot of it. I only got here the past like 45 minutes, and I was waiting just so I can like hop on the aftermath.
Oh,
I at least want to be
I'll
on the
DM you
panel
the
in some
topics.
form.
Yeah, some of them were a little bit more spicy. I was afraid of like voicing my opinion on certain ones, but like one that was kind of spicy was the whole burqa niqab one. I mean, I thought actually, I thought the heteronormative thing was pretty interesting as well. So
I literally don't know what the topics were. Can someone give me a specific, like just a
oh,
quick
I'm
rundown?
sorry. I'll DM it to you. Sorry.
I mean, I don't want to rehash what you already went through, so we can just ignore it and we'll talk about whatever. I'm just curious what you were all talking about. Like Maddie was here talking about it earlier, but she disappeared.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So no, Maddie's right there, right?
Oh. There you are,
Maddie. Oh yeah, she's right. She's right
I
over there.
see you. She's muted. That's why.
Yeah.
And her light is super bright. Like her face is like ghostly.
Okay. Well. Yeah, we were talking about a few things actually. So we talked about the burqa ban. Yeah, we were talking about the burqa ban that happened in Switzerland, which morphed into a few topics actually, including like a dating topic, which was really interesting. We talked about International Women's Day and like the also the Burger King ad fuck up, and we talked about bisexual women not feeling like they could come out to if they were dating men, they're less likely to come out, and why that is, and like what it means to be bisexual and the consequences for that. So yeah, those are our topics.
Well, I don't want to like rehash over those, but like especially the first two topics, I'd have to do more research on. But the bisexual one, I don't know. I feel like a lot of bisexual women, personally, like do want like kids, so they like gravitate towards like men. I don't know. It depends. It's on an individual basis, but I can't relate because I don't want kids and I don't have a womb, so it's like
we don't have to rehash it. We don't want to. It's not a big deal. But first of all, I wanted to ask the panel: did you guys want to talk? Do you guys have any ideas as to what you want to talk about? If not, I have a topic we can try.
Well,
For
we
anything.
kind of did.
So
But
what is it? Just tell me, please. I don't know what you're talking about.
We did.
We
Well,
had
the
two
thing
people
is-
here that were really transphobic, and they left.
They're not. Well, I don't know. Maybe they will.
They're not coming back. They're not coming
Well,
back.
we got one. You got. I don't know.
Well, thanks for
Jugsy will
talking
come
over
in.
me, but go ahead.
Yeah, maybe Jugsy will come in. He's our one contentious guy who's our debates Lord and Savior. So we can see if he can come in here. Let me
Well,
get-
anyway,
I'll
Prime.
be right
Sorry,
back.
sorry, I couldn't make it, Prime.
Oh no, it's
Yeah, I
it's
love
fine.
Alice. Hi, Alice.
I went to go start my streaming computer at 4:00 my time, and it decided to do Windows needs to do a fucking system repair, and I'm like, fuck.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, it's not a problem. Not a problem at all. But thank you so much. Looks like we're all filled up here. All right. So I don't know what that other thing was, but if that other person gets in here, then yeah, we can talk about it. All right.
We were talking about media bias. Does the media push an agenda?
Yes.
Okay. And what agenda?
I mean-
Specifically referring to like gay people and all that.
Well, no, all media pushes an agenda. It just depends how they're pushing it.
Are
Like,
you
if
going?
it's-
Are
They do
you?
to follow trends,
Is this
right?
gonna turn into like a Noam Chomsky manufacturing consent thing?
No. Like what this is going to turn into is the fact that like the only true media that is out there giving us the real knowledge and information is Alex Jones and the Infowars.com network.
I was gonna say this is a conservative talking point.
Here we go. Wait, I'm not
I'm ready to-
conservative though.
It's like
I'm ready to
Alex
beat up the
Jones and the
conservatives.
Martello guy.
Horseshoe theory,
formed their
dude.
own,
Horseshoe
like-
theory's real.
Infowars.com.
You heard it here first at Infowars.com.
There's nothing that I believe is so much in the fact that like I really do think nowadays like horseshoe theory is real. Like because everybody like on the far left talks about like cultural manipulation and like and our media is like propaganda, and then everybody on the right's like our media is propaganda. We've got cultural Marxism, and it's like whoa.
That's not
You know?
what horseshoe theory is, though. Would you really disagree? Would you say that media is not being controlled by the people who have the most power? I mean,
So
like-
for somebody for our economic smooth brains like me on the panel, can somebody explain horseshoe theory?
extremists
well,
are
I
the
mean,
same.
One day they're following
they're
Q and
similar.
Donald Trump,
They're
and the next day
similar.
they decided they wanted to be a tanky, and Mao wasn't all that bad.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to horseshoe
Yeah.
theory in a nutshell.
Cool, thank
Well, I
Extremists
wouldn't
are
even
the
go
same.
that far. I would say like the horseshoe
might
is
not, but
not
they sure as
exactly
hell
the
did.
same. Oh, okay. The
Close
horseshoe is not
enough.
exactly the same, right? It's just it bends in like this, right? So it's very similar in some of those like, some of those things, right?
But that's a weird thing to like claim as the same. Like, yes, media is controlled by the most powerful people in society. The only difference is that
It's owned.
That's
leftists
pretty anti-Semitic.
leftists are hold on, whoa, Samantha. Leftists are claiming that it's like it's the rich people, and then conservatives are claiming it's the leftists. So
No,
No,
conservatives
conservatives are literally
claim
just
that
saying
it's the rich
Jews.
too.
No,
Well, they
conservatives
think
literally
it's
just say it's the Jews.
yeah,
They
No,
think
I
it's
hear
the
the
rich
left
too.
right.
saying it's
They
the
don't.
Jews all
They
the
think that
time.
it's rich people though. They do say it's elitist, right? The leftists say it's like the rich, and then the right people say it's the rich. It's the same thing. These groups of elites are owning our media and controlling it apparently. So
yeah,
That's how
yeah.
it
But they
works.
claim that
the-
one is the
the
gay
Jewish
Jews
boogeyman?
and the other is the rich people. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a difference.
both are Jews. I mean, not both are Jews. Both are rich.
And also,
people.
one is more generally going to be.
That is correct.
more
Stardust.
accurate than the
Jews
other
are
ones.
both Jewish and rich. I've read it somewhere. I can confirm.
Yeah, you
No,
can't
I mean,
be Jewish
I'm
without
not
being
saying
rich. This
that.
is like set
I'm
in
not saying
stone.
that.
No, I
You
was
guys
just
know
making
what
a
I'm
joke. I was just
saying,
making a joke,
right?
yeah.
You also obviously can't be
Words
rich
came out of your
without
mouth.
being Jewish. Clearly, by
Yeah.
horseshoe
I just want to
theory.
say I don't think it's
Yeah.
Jews at all. I don't agree to this one.
No, I don't
That was
think anyone
beautiful.
is
Second
seriously saying that.
And I don't think
Hopefully.
anybody's saying that
Yeah.
it's Jewish people. No, I
I'm
don't
pretty
think so.
sure Alex Jones. I'm pretty sure Rush Limbaugh. I'm pretty sure
Soros.
Steven Crowder.
They all
I'm pretty
Oh,
sure
yeah,
all of the
some-
big people in right-wing media have, in fact, said it was the Jews.
Yikes.
So
I
you
mean,
can't say
they've been doing it for hundreds
nobody
of
says.
years, right? I mean, it's
Well,
a
no,
historical thing to
A lot of them
blame the
won't say
Jews
it's
about
the
something.
Jews.
It's,
They'll say it's an elite group of people or a
Yes.
cabal of like these upper echelon folks that hiding in the shadows. They won't say
You mean the
Jewish people.
globalists?
They know it's
Hold on.
anti-Semitic.
You mean
Dude,
the
they'll get
I
globalists that are
literally
flagged
had a
hiding
in
in
dude.
George Soros?
Literally, I
And
had a dude try to explain to me the other day that like the Democrats are like drinking the blood of children, and like that
yeah,
they're
that's
like
some
controlling the
QAnon
media.
shit.
QAnon?
That's
Yeah.
like
Wait,
a
are you guys
legitimate
not?
QAnon theory.
Wait,
That was the drinking the blood of children was Alex Jones. That was literally something he had said flat out about
No,
Hillary
this is
Clinton.
like a literal QAnon belief,
Shoot and
though.
miss.
It's
A
like
lot more
people
people
are
believe
like
in it now.
drinking the
Yeah.
blood of
QAnon still.
children after they have sex with them. This is like a QAnon theory.
What the fuck?
Wait,
Yeah, I know, right? What the fuck?
Stardust.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's the thing that people actually believe.
if it
somehow
sounds
now.
stupid, it is. And this is
Yeah.
like a majority of the Republican
Are
Party.
you sure it's not a joke?
A
I think it's a
majority.
majority.
Yeah,
I
well, I mean, 82% of people, I think, Republicans. There's a statistic somewhere.
believe in
Support
What?
Trump
Salty Sam, you're
after
gonna say
all the shit he
something?
went through. Okay.
I mean, I'd just be so surprised to hear that that many Republicans actually believe in QAnon. I mean, if you draw the correlation between Trump having some pro QAnon rhetoric and a lot like the very high support for Trump, you can reasonably say that probably he has encouraged more Republicans to support QAnon, but I would still bet that a lot less than even 50% of
Sam,
Republicans
let me
support
clarify.
QAnon.
I didn't say over like 82% of Republicans are QAnoners. I said 82%
Yeah.
of the Republican base
But you did say a
support
majority.
Trump after everything he's done. A lot of those people in that
Yeah, agreed.
percentage are QAnoners. I didn't
But
say
I
they were
don't think it's
all
a majority
QAnoners.
though. 'Cause-
I don't think it's
and you
anywhere
did
near
I didn't
say
say
a majority.
no. There's statistics that the majority of Republicans approve of him, regardless.
Right.
Like because
Yeah, but
he's spread misinformation,
That doesn't make him
and they eat
QAnon.
that up like it's like
Yeah, but that
fucking
doesn't
Yeah, but that
oatmeal, like
doesn't mean
Quaker
QAnon.
oats.
Like the QAnon like faction within the Republican Party, the right wing, right? That's a very small minority. Believe it or not, that's a small minority of
Well,
the right. Okay,
Mhm.
that's when you're getting
apparently
into
it's
like the
30%.
far right,
I
the
just
extremist
linked an
right.
article
I mean, that's
contradicts
a
that.
lot less than 100%. But at the same time,
No,
you're,
yeah.
It's
you're
not
looking
even that much. Like that's a way overestimate.
But
how
like,
much
but the
of
thing
that
is,
is
when
according
we
to this
want to
article-
bring media bias back into this, like, what is most media going to show us as the Trump supporters? Right? They're going to want to keep showing us the sensationalized. Look, they're all QAnons. They're all this. They're all Pizzagate. They're all this and that. I mean, that's the majority of what we're going to see, and that's what the news articles that we're going to see because they're out there doing dumb shit and talking crazy and getting
Yeah.
really good sound bites for media, getting really good pictures because they're all wearing the craziest shirt with the weirdest shit saying on it, and then we eat that shit up.
It's all the Jews.
All the
but I
Jews, not just
really
some of them, all
mean-
of them. They're all naturally rich. Like they like you slit their throat and they're like ah, and then like fucking $100 bills fly out, and it just
Every
seals the
Jew I
show.
know
blood.
that
But
is
I
Jewish.
really do want to touch on the whole thing about like the media like just being like this grand conspiracy to like sell certain narratives, right? Because I think it's kind of like I understand being concerned about all of this media being owned by like certain people, right? But journalists still have like their own like integrity, don't they? Like they still write their own
When there's
articles.
a paycheck hanging over their head and they have a family, the integrity is fallible.
But this
Yeah,
you understand how
anytime
many
you write-
people you
But anytime
understand
you
how
write an
many
article, you're going
people
for what your editor wants.
Also, Stardust, you have to remember that people fuck. You totally screwed me
anytime
up,
okay, but
Samantha
here's
Banana.
the thing.
God damn it.
Here's the thing. The amount of people required to maintain that type of conspiracy is like enormous, right? That would be like every journalist that works for every news organization,
Oh
right?
yes, thank you.
That's a
Stardust,
lot
for-
of people. That would be a lot of people that have to be involved with it, and the more people involved with the conspiracy, the less likely.
it's not a
Stardust, thank you
it
for
is, right?
reminding me what I wanted to say that Samantha made me forget. Every news organization has a bias.
Of
If
course
the
they do.
facts are true, that's what matters. And the bias from said, like if it's Fox, CNN, whatever, doesn't matter if the facts are true. Then
Yeah,
if
but
they're
many
like,
times their bias become the facts.
fucking.
Is
They
that-
use their
What?
bias as the facts. Like they turn those into state them
What
as
what
facts.
bias what
He's
what
a-
bias does a news org have or that they've said that is biased that is a fact but is not a fact? Like can you like a specific thing that like a news org is saying that is of their bias that is
For
not
Dylan
factual?
Burns chat, if you weren't here prior to this, because I was late, I couldn't be part of the main panel tonight, and I wish I was because Prime is Bay and he's based. This guy, he was like States, but now he changed his name to Not Jugsy. He's very conservative and he doesn't know what he's talking about, and there's the context.
Oh yeah.
So,
Well, don't just
okay, I don't
dismiss
know
him
what
off
you're
that.
talking about.
no, come on, Eagle Eye, you know.
Yeah.
it's-
So, but no.
Yeah, I
I
want to
think
give him
we're
a
having
chance to actually like
conversation.
say his points though.
Yeah, Jugsy. What? Our friend Fab asked a question about like, can you give us an example of what you're talking about?
I mean, I'd have to think about it if they're specific. I'd have to look it up, but I know I've heard them.
You
But
know
I
it,
mean,
but
like,
you just
do-
don't know
do-
any
Do
specifics.
you
I
see
mean,
like
the
why
media,
people would?
I
they
can bring
said
up
stuff
one.
about like they made false statements about like how certain things were happening, like overstating like the truth of things, like
Right.
saying like
Just like when Fox News was talking about Trump's inauguration being the biggest inauguration with the numbers, even though we had factual photos and we're able to document that it was in fact bullshit.
Photos, video too. Like we knew that it wasn't the biggest inauguration, but he trumped. Like funny enough, trumped that shit up.
Quote unquote.
So, yeah.
Wait, what do you mean, quote unquote?
I didn't say quote unquote. Someone else did.
No, the other person.
Okay.
So real quick, can I just mention that I linked it's an article, but the article is specifically about a poll that was done that says 56% of Republicans believe in QAnon, at least to some degree. 33% believe that the theory is mostly true. 23% believe that some parts of the theory are true. Only 13% said that.
And just remember, like QAnon is like
56% of Republicans as a whole, or Republicans that were in the poll.
Republicans
It's
that were in
56%. That's over half of
well, I mean-
Republicans. That's
I mean,
Well,
nothing,
also
in,
remember-
nothing
also
in the
remember-
QAnon theory is new, all right? It's
Oh,
just
no,
a
no, also-
compilation of
it's not
different
new. Hey,
Yeah,
keep in
conspiracy
mind,
theories
Prime
all as
Case
one
chat.
thing.
These
Wanted to
people.
Can I be honest? Can I be honest?
No.
Most Republicans that I know do not believe in that.
Well, no. Well, here's the thing with
Okay.
QAnon is
Okay,
like QAnon is like not one. It's like a whole mirage of conspiracy theories. It's like the catch-all of mirage. It's a whole like catch-all of like various right-wing or just like utterly absurd. I mean, flat earthers are also QAnoners. Like it's this whole
They're
like
stupid.
like
It's trying
Yeah.
to manipulate the
so
world
the
to
poll
fit
so the
their
poll to say that like
reality.
so a
The
poll
Earth
to say,
is
like,
flat, though.
I
like we
just-
can go on from that, but
I just guys, I just can't with like I really do. I can't like the whole like
like it's not
the
the
whole
poll is not
media
saying
manipulation. We're doing propaganda, even though we don't have like a state like propaganda organization.
Hey,
It's just
Stardust,
like
do you mind giving us an example?
Okay, well, Stardust, what I think what you were kind of like you were when you were saying is that
Do
you
I
were
need to
saying
pull
that like
up like a YouTube cricket noise? Or
Hold on. Let
what do
Fab
you mean
finish.
a cricket noise?
Let
Like, what do you
Fab
ask you a
mean?
question?
Hold
you
on.
just went-
1 second, please. Fab, finish your point, and
Well,
then
I'm
Stardust
listening
can
to
answer.
somebody say something.
Yeah. Let Fab finish.
yeah, is that like you were saying how like it would be hard for like so many journalists to all be on board with like this one form of messaging or to be all sort of on board with like this sort of like conspiracy kind of idea. When people are
Yeah.
saying that like mass media has biases or that they are pushing various agendas, it's not like that they're having a Zoom call with all their journalists and telling them to like do certain things. It's if a journalist doesn't like all journalists when they write their stories, they don't just press publish on New York Times website. It goes through various editors, and those journalists know I can't publish this kind of story if I work for X org because X org has this bias and won't publish this. So it's not like they're directly telling them, hey, you have to only write this or you can only write that. They just know. So it's not like this grand like agenda, like 5-point plan, like kind of idea. It's this that various orgs have an establishment of editors or just like bosses and whatever that have their
Right.
agenda that they want to push, and they will reject or approve stories that fit that agenda. So it's
I'm
not
not.
like it's
I'm
not
not
like
disputing.
directing them. Yeah. But
Yeah. So
independent.
I'm
That's
not.
why independent journalism is such a big thing to push, because they don't have that upper people censoring them of what they can and cannot publish.
Right. I am not disputing that every media organization has bias, right? That is for sure. That's true, right? But the idea that like there's this whole thing that people have been telling me about. Like I've had various friends tell me like, oh, like we pump out like our own type of propaganda, and I'm sure we do, right? But I don't think it's to the scale that like people are saying it is, right? Like that we like contract with like private news companies to like pump out propaganda that's like that is like skewed a certain way so that like the American public doesn't know certain things, right? I feel like that's a pretty big like leap. I don't know. I could be wrong. I could certainly be
Stardust,
wrong, but
every news
Yeah.
channel has some kind of slant to their
yeah, I
agenda.
just said that. I just
So
said
Yeah, they're
that.
I know you
incentivized
just
to
said
kind of
that.
like clickbaity
Yeah.
within their
I'm
titles. To
I'm
kind of
I'm
like
referring to
incentivize you
that
to
as
like, oh,
in
Trump
there are some
is making
slants
this
from
good.
different
Well, finish your
media
point.
sources
Finish your
that
point,
are
Tiffany, and then we'll go to
beneficial and
Vortex.
some
Go
that
ahead.
are harmful.
Vortex, you were going to say something?
I was just saying that public news outlets are incentivized to kind of write clickbaity titles to where it's like, you know, the frogs are turning gay because of all the chemtrails from the planes driving over or something. They're meant to like tackle your mindset and kind of make you question the opposite, I suppose, and or
Jewish space laters starting the Oregon wildfires.
yeah.
An Alex Jones like kind of title, and he's not mainstream media.
No, but that was just an example of like a clickbaity. I guess I can't really think of like a Fox News outlet right now off the top of my head, but they are meant
My
to
point to
kind of like
Stardust was
manipulate my
everyone
mind.
has a political slant in the media. It just depends how it slants. Is it pro inclusivity and fact based, or is it fear mongering and not so much fact based?
Right.
And
And
So
that
we
for
should
sure
all
that's
admit
not
that.
what I'm
also
debating,
assuming,
right? That
though,
what
that,
I'm
like-
talking about is like this this
Well,
theory
you're
that I
talking
see
about an
on
agenda.
Oh,
but
hold on.
what kind of
Let
agenda?
let her
my
finish,
Okay.
please. Let her finish.
Sorry.
Yeah. When what I'm talking about is there is this like theory that I see on both sides, right? Where it's like there is this uh conspiracy to like brainwash people and like to influence like culture, right? And so like that's kind of like that's kind of what I'm talking about, right? I wish like if I have a few more minutes I can probably put it into better words. But I see it on both sides and it really like makes me
No, I
it
get it.
makes me yeah.
I'm
Like
just
there's
confused
this
about
media that does like guide people towards a specific view, and it could be considered I guess like mind altering or whatever you were talking about. But it just depends on the slant people go with. Like I said earlier, inclusivity, or is it going to be like fear mongering? Because if people like, oh, for example, and this is like honestly, it's the best example I can do because I'm trans. Like, trans people are bad because A, B, and C, and we're going to say all this horrible stuff about them, but not go into detail of why it's horrible because it's not actually horrible. Or is it like, I don't know what kind of media you watch, so it's really difficult to like determine what you're talking about. It sounds like you're like conservative, but I
Well,
was
who
not.
No,
cares
I'm
what
not.
Stardust watches?
I'm
You're
not
basing your
conservative at
opinions
all.
off of these slants, Tiffany. You're saying, oh, these slant one way or another, but you got to understand that you're deciding which way it slants is also based off of your own bias. So, like, you're going to be looking at certain news articles as, oh, these are wrong because it says something bad about trans people. Now, that's because of your bias, your beliefs, your opinions, right? You got to remember there's an entire other demographic who thinks that is correct. And people like you and me are in fact wrong and problematic, and we should be canceled from like entire societies. Now, like, so like you're
Wow.
faces. I see your faces. You got to understand, like,
I'm
not only
waiting for you to
media has
finish because I don't want to interrupt you, and I
okay,
agree
fine, you
with a
can
lot of
interrupt
what
me.
you're saying.
Good. because I'm right.
Oh my god.
Alice, you want to say something?
Yeah, I want to say I'm fucking confused. Stardust, what exactly are you arguing here? Because you're basically like, yeah, I agree. You've agreed with everybody. So what exactly is your point here? Like you're
I guess
arguing
I
that.
was just. I mean, I'm not really arguing about anything. I was just expressing just like the frustration around it, right? Like I'm not like conservative at all. I'm like a progressive, but no, I'm just saying like I see certain theories like they're like like the cultural Marxism conspiracy theory, right? You guys know about that one. That one's so fun, right? But then like you can look at the cultural Marxism theory, but then you look at like other like you look far enough into the left, I feel like you actually get into like people who think that like that media is being used to like brainwash people and to like control culture, right?
I have proof
Do you
of
know what I'm
that.
saying?
I can prove that to you. It is. I have literal empirical data that shows that. Yes, it is. It is happening. People are pushed further into their own ideological views by social media because that's how it fucking works.
It's
I
a
can prove
bubble.
that to you. Yes. I literally have empirical data for that. So on Kelly Peen Club we did an AMA with a gentleman who's done a study into that, into a
Mhm.
study in how social media. He focused on YouTube, but social media in general pushes people further into their ideological views, into extremism.
Mhm.
Yes, it happens, and I can prove it to you. So
No,
yes.
yeah, no, I
Big
understand
culprit
that
is on
social
like social
media.
media, like the algorithm. If you look for certain things, it will actually box you
So-
into your own
Yes,
bubble.
Stardust, you
social
can reply.
media, right? But I'm not talking about social media, right? Literally, specifically talking about like
A
news
lot of
and
what you're
news
talking about,
sources,
Social
right?
media.
People on YouTube who are like big political figureheads, shared frequently among Facebook and other social media. And if you watch even one of the videos, whether you agree or not, you will be prompted to watch more of them or people like
Yes.
them.
But
This
yeah,
is how it
but the
works.
same thing
People
with
being
like cat
sold a good
videos and stuff, right?
Yes, it's exactly the same. The guy I'm talking about is Mark Ledwich, by the way. I will link Mark Ledwich's studies and stuff in here because it's actually interesting topic-wise. But Stardust, I think the problem is that there's just a lot of information behind this, and some of it, yes, is like fear-mongering, conspiracy theorist shit. Yes, agreed. Like the cultural Marxism stuff, but a lot of it is just literally factually what happens. People are pushed further into extremism by what they're being recommended.
Yeah, I mean, hey man, I could be wrong. If you can link me that stuff, like
I can
that
link
would
you
be
that
great
stuff.
because like I'm just like lost a lot of the time.
It's because
So
it's a really complicated topic, and you can't just jump
yeah,
into it and say like, yeah. I
It
mean,
is.
like
You
this,
know what? I love her initiative to learn because that's important. Like,
yes,
she's not just
super
brushing
important.
inside. It's like, hey, I might be wrong. Let me know. Send me stuff. I'll read it and like fact check it. That's important.
Yes, yeah,
Everyone
it
should,
is.
do that.
Super, super, super crucial. So yeah, don't get me wrong. Like Stardust, that's important. This is a topic that I do know a lot about because it's so whenever I do an AMA, I study it beforehand, and I
yeah,
have about 10 research papers on this. I can link those
yeah.
too, but that gets a little
I
excessive.
would love that. That would be awesome. I love reading new things.
I will link more stuff. I linked the
Oh,
first
Maddie's
two.
in here now. Yay!
Sorry, my
Right.
internet crapped out. So I had to
know.
restart
It
my
just you were
computer.
you were struggling getting in here, but I'm so glad you're here now.
I waited my turn.
I kind of have like a not so secret crush on Maddie, so
I love you, Tiffany.
I know you
Where are
do.
you linking this stuff? If you don't
Uh,
mind letting me know.
Yeah, I'm linking in the Twitch chat, but I can link it in Discord too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, put it in
that's all I
VC
was-
chat if you would.
I will.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm
The
like a
chat doesn't-
boomer
the
when it
chat doesn't-
comes to
the chat doesn't
when it
deserve
comes to like Twitch chat. I'm like a super boomer. So yeah.
I will continue linking. I have more studies as well. I have to find them because they're in a bookmark on one of my browsers, and I
Okay.
have 4 browsers.
So just letting others in, if you want to know this conversation, talking about the effects of media. Anyone else have thoughts?
I have like a question, sort of like just sort of like prompt, sort of a little bit more discussion. I don't think it's a secret to say that the vast majority those of us in here are on the left side of politics, and so probably aren't the people who are actively watching Fox News. So I think it might be a little bit of a bias on my part to ask this kind of a question, but like, isn't right-wing media and a right-wing bias inherently dangerous? So like the way in which that the right, like the things that the right pushes in their media is not like they push the crazy conspiracy theories. They push the like ideas that like these people are coming for your guns and they're gonna take all your money and blah, 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 like it's that like hateful, and you don't see like left media sort of like demonizing the right of like is gonna like destroy your life and has like some conspiratorial cabal against you. So like, isn't there like when we talk about media bias, isn't it sort of it's not like it's equal, like, or at least the effect of the bias is not equal.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't say the
I
effect
see what you're
is.
saying.
I wouldn't
Go
say
ahead.
the effect is equal, right? And even like the stuff I understand, like the YouTube and like the social media stuff, right? But like the type of stuff I was talking about, like the type of conspiracy theories that like I've heard from people had specifically to do with like magazines and like news agencies and stuff like that. And like yes, they're like isolating, right? They like people fall more into their own like echo chambers, but I think that's a bit different than this idea that like there's like a mass like drive to like
Coordination.
yeah, coordination to like
every
change the culture of like of like a large population, right?
You don't think
I
like
feel like we've already been over this. Every mainstream media, whether it's left or right leaning, has a bias, but a lot of the same
Right.
people deliver the facts and they just twist it in one direction or another. And depending on how they twist it, determines the people who are watching and their perspective getting twisted along with the narrative. It's a problem which we're trying to solve on the left, because unfortunately a lot of right wing not just like in mainstream media like Fox News or OAN, which I don't even know if they're like mainstream, but
They're
or
not.
Newsmax, but like people like Ben Shapiro, who's like big on YouTube, or Steven Crowder. These are people with like large platforms, and they spew like anti-LGBT uh diversity stuff all the time. And some of the stories they tell, like mainstream news, is accurate, but they will twist it to make it sound like they're attacking whitey, or like cultural diversity or something like that.
Yeah.
I
So
think it's best
go
to
ahead.
take in all the media instead of just focusing on what agrees with you. Because I listen to left and right media. I listen to AM radio, and I listen to those fucks like Rush Limbaugh and shit like that. I mean, he's a terrible person.
Not
But you
anymore.
gotta hear.
No, he's not anymore.
But you also have
Terrible
Praise the
ex-person.
you also
sun.
have Mark Levin. You got Mark Levin. You got Buck Sexton. You got those people too that are big on the right. I mean, you might not have heard of them, but they're on the AM radio station every day. So it's good to be able to hear all this and be able to counter or analyze their arguments and not just stick to the left side of things and hear one side. But even on the left side, you got, if you listen to Vosh or Destiny, you won't like Jimmy Dore or something, or
Well, Jimmy
fuck
Doe's
Jimmy
not a
Dore.
leftist.
So to tack
And
on to what
Destiny is
Tiffany,
like
yeah.
so left,
See, that's
but
another
not
thing.
like
People say he's not a leftist. Some people say he is. I mean, it's
He's a
yeah,
it's
liberal.
those
hard to
people are
get south.
stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
He's
think.
left, but he's not left.
Yeah, I think there could be honest disagreement though, right? Friday. Like we can be honest disagreements as to where people stand, and you can not everyone just because they have a platform are what they say they are, right? We can recognize this.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I can understand that.
yeah, I think Jimmy Dore is lots of things. And I'm not gonna try to put him in a box here because I don't care enough. But I think. I mean, I think it's fine for the infighting that you see all the time between leftists, as long as it doesn't become toxic, right? But actually confronting people's ideas, confronting how they're operating, I think is healthy. At least that's my opinion. I'm curious.
Yeah, because you have that Brianna Joy Gray and Sam Sater going at it too, and things like that. So it's like a lot of analyzing within ourselves too, in our media, to see which ones are truly on our side and which ones are just trying to get our money.
Yeah.
So to tack on to what Tiffany was saying, and also Friday Living in response to what Fab was saying, a popular counter narrative would basically be to say that Antifa, or Antifa, excuse me, is the real dangerous crowd, right? Those are the ones that are violent. Those are the people that are dangerous. When in reality, pretty much everybody knows that white conservatives are way more dangerous and have a much higher tendency to terrorism within the United States. So that's just a cold hard fact. But that's the counter narrative. That's basically what they would say on those networks, is that Antifa, those are the real dangerous people.
Okay. What do you all think? Three Glad?
I think they're wrong.
Well, obviously, but his point was basically conservatives, or basically that we all know, right, that conservatives are more likely to have all these guns and basically cause terror to, Oklahoma City bombing, Waco, all these different obvious things that you can point to, the Capitol insurrection, stuff like that. All these things that you can point to of dangerous, basically stochastic terrorist attacks, and you you end up arguing about a few burned Nike stores or something like that on the other side, and they say, Antifa, those are the people that are actually dangerous, when they don't have the introspection to basically see the damage that their side has caused.
I mean, in their defense of like criticizing Antifa, Chop was pretty whack. So there's.
Do you know about
Yeah,
Chop?
but Chapo is not representative of Antifa, I would say, and to attribute that to them is kind of absurd. And Chapo's the fucking worst.
I thought he rigged the 2011
Chop,
instead.
the zone in Seattle for
I'm
occupied
thinking you're
zone.
talking about the cartels.
Yeah, I've got quite a
Chapo
bit of
Trap House,
information about
Yeah, I'm
the
not talking about
occupied zone in Seattle. I mean, I can tell you anything you want to know, and it sounds like you bought the bullshit narrative about it. That's what I got.
Are you assuming that I did? Or
Yes.
I was saying that wait, what do you mean bullshit narrative, like the Chop is good? Or
That Chop
I was
was
implying
some
that it
kind of paramilitary training zone, and people were getting killed in there every day. That's utterly been debunked. And as someone who lives like a quarter mile away from it, it's a false narrative.
Wait, are people saying that Chop was like literally like Operation Jade Helm type shit?
Right.
I literally thought we were talking about.
Did you feel that way?
I thought so too.
Yeah, right. What the fuck? Like I know, right? You and me
flew directly over my head.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
No
Yeah,
problem.
like when you're like,
Three Glad, hold
Chapel,
on. Hold on, 1 second. Three Glad. Is that what you actually thought? Did you? What is your thinking about the zone?
My view is to give credence to the Republicans who like shit on Antifa. Chop is a good example of like, well.
Oh yeah,
here's an example
I've
where
got a
Antifa
special
was
list
pretty
for
whack.
those shitheads on Twitter. Yeah, they like what's her name, Conservative Barbie, and the freaking guy with the orange spray tan.
I don't need to call people out. Just
Well,
No,
I'm not going to give them
Pieces of
names.
shit, call them out.
I'm not going to give them any
I'm so
airtime.
lost right now.
But I you know who I'm talking about, right?
So
what exactly are we talking about?
So
Like, what do you
what-
mean by Chapo?
So no, not
Oh,
Chapo.
Chop.
Not Chapo.
It's Chop.
Not
So
Chapo.
the autonomous. The autonomous zone
Chapo?
that happened a few
Seattle,
months
right?
back in Seattle, right? So to my audience
Like
members,
Chaz?
yes,
Chaz or
yes,
Chop?
Yes.
yes. There was the. I'm just going to call it the autonomous zone because no one knows the name. But the autonomous zone that people took within Seattle for a period of time, right? Which was kind of like this. Well, maybe Seattle would like to describe it better than I can. But
Absolutely.
please.
Yeah. So what happened is we had a street protest here in front of the East Precinct for about a week, and SPD stood there on closed off 4 city blocks
people who lived in this fourth city block area had to go through the police and National Guard barricade, and eventually they were just tired of it. And essentially it was a sick out. The SPD walked off. They moved all of their, they moved all their evidence. And to this day, we do not have accountability for whether it was coming from the mayor or it came from the union president, who is by the way, a Fox TV regular commentator. This is the SPD Union Police Officers Guild president, basically feeding talking points directly to Fox News, bad-mouthing the entire city except for his special unit. And so after that, after they literally left, after they secured all the evidence, we didn't know what to do. So it was all us protesters there on the spot, and we were like, hey, we're not going into this building. This is our building. And people started memeing about it. They were like, oh yeah, now we're in an autonomous zone. And they got real clever and made a bunch of signs. And then 2 days later, we were like, wait, there have been actual autonomous zones in the real world, and we are not that. We're not some region of Spain that is broken away from the Spanish government. We are still in Seattle. We're Seattleites. We just don't have police in this zone. So it became the occupied protest. And yes, people started showing up and partying at night. And there were a bunch of kids there, and kids living downtown have guns. And so after a party one night, someone got shot. It was terrible. And SPD made a big deal about how they were obstructed from the site, but that's bullshit. If you look at the cameras, if you look at the timeline, if you look at independent reporting from Omari Salisbury, you can see they were given complete access to the scene. The medics were working on him, and they forced Seattle Fire Department to stay out, even though the scene was completely clear. They could have, in fact, moved the injured person less than a block to outside of the so-called occupied zone, and they would have been fine. And then there was a very unfortunate incident where it looked like someone was trying to do a vehicle attack, and I'm unsure personally who shot the people in that vehicle. But those are the two incidents of internal violence at the Capitol Hill occupied protest.
And it's because they have no repercussions for what they do.
Sorry, you're muffled. What was that?
Yeah, are you swimming in the water? Do you want to fix your mic real quick?
Because they have no repercussions for what they do. If there's no police, they can do whatever they want. Stupid.
You sound like you're 13.
There
You
were
want to
police.
turn on your camera?
Stop. Hey.
The police were like 20 yards away. It's like, there's no repercussions on 3rd Avenue in Seattle when someone gets shot on the street and they get away with it. I mean, it's a standard operating procedure in a major city when there is not a police officer immediately in front of that situation.
Yeah. If how you say this is true, right? Like if the picture you're painting is true, on that specific incident, then it makes sense. I mean, yeah, people get away with shootings all the time. Like, yeah, if there's not an officer right there, and even then, that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be an arrest made. Like anything can happen. That makes sense. But 3 Glad, you seem to have a dispute here with how this is being portrayed. Would you like to elaborate on that?
Wait, dispute with how what's being portrayed?
The autonomous zone in general.
I just think it did a pretty good job at making Antifa look bad. So when right wingers when they talk about Antifa being
it wasn't
bad,
Antifa.
Let him finish.
It was
let him
like
finish
the
his
kids
point.
in Black Bloc.
Let him finish his point. Let him finish his point.
Yeah,
Glad,
are
please.
you it? From my experience, Black Bloc and Antifa are pretty synonymous.
No,
I don't know if you have a different experience,
but
that's my
but that's
experience.
not that's not who drove SPD out of Capitol Hill.
If
It was
I
the
may
people
interject
who
real
lived
quick,
there.
we should probably say anti-fascist instead of Antifa because that has a more impact. So when the right wing tries to say anti-fascist, they look really fucking bad. So just use anti-fascist, not Antifa.
Sure.
Just,
Whatever.
suggestion.
My question too would be the reason people think about oh, it made such and such look bad. Well, I don't know that you can necessarily blame the actual groups and activists and organizers for that point, because that really is just demonstrative of media framing. And no matter what happened, the media was always going to, especially the right-wing media, were going to frame something with a disregard for facts and make it so that it reinforces the narrative that they were pushing anyway. So like keep that in mind when you're seeing reports on different demonstrations, on the work of activists and organizers, because everything that you're getting, depending on the news source, is through the lens of like with a very specific agenda in mind and like looking to fill that narrative. So I would just advise you, like going forward, especially to be weary of that and to seek out like firsthand sources and people who are actually there on the ground, because it could be a completely different story than what you assume.
That's fair, but like I'm still wondering like how are they not like relevant to anti-fascists then? If like because
Yeah. Oh,
you say
I'm
like
glad
the
you
con-
did
it
it.
seemed
Oh fuck, shit.
Oh, dude, let
yeah,
him finish, please. Hey, Tiffany, let him finish. Do that, please.
well just like the last it seemed like your statement was that it's like just people in the neighborhood, and from what I've experienced, that's usually like where anti-fascists come from. It's just like from the neighborhoods, from the local areas.
Oh.
That's where you see them.
So I actually know the anti-fascist people, the people who show up to counter protest people who are protesting the Martin Luther King March the year before COVID.
Wait, they're
and so
protesting the
there
Martin
was
Luther King March?
yes, there was a protest of the Martin Luther King March. I'm not
Let me
going to
see
give
if
that
there's
person
something
any
included.
time. But
Oh,
all
so
the
Antifa
people
counter
that I
protested the protesters.
right.
Is that what you're
Yeah.
Okay, shout out Antifa. That's good.
Right. So I know what these people basically look like, except they're in black bloc. But I know the shape and the size and what they sort of move like and what they sound like. There were 10 to 20 times as many people protesting the East Precinct. This was either now we're all Antifa meme has happened, or it's not what it doesn't match your narrative.
I guess that's fair, but like I guess what was the goal exactly of storming the police precinct? Was it like
It
the
wasn't
goal of
storming. It was a sick out. They walked away from their own precinct.
Okay, clearly I don't okay.
Yeah, was it the station lead or the chief that said basically just give it up, walk away.
No, we don't have accountability for who made the order. The chief
there was
of police
order
Carmen
came
Best
down,
said that the city ordered it. The mayor Jenny Durkin denied that order. I think
Let me
it
get
came
Ken.
from within the Seattle Police Officers Guild.
Yeah, but it wasn't like they stormed it. Like literally, police just like walked out. Like they just fucking took their shit. They secured what they needed to, and they fucking left.
They secured
But would
all
that not
evidence. Yeah.
Would that not have been because they were under pressure? I would assume, and maybe wrongly so, that they wouldn't.
They were
just
trying to diffuse it.
leave for no
So rather
reason.
than stay there, so every time like cops stay in a station that's trying to be taken, right, and they fight back or whatever, it just makes the tensions get bigger, boil over. Like every time you get into a fight, what's the big information most people try to tell you? Your parents, the people that are being reasonable, not anybody like me, right? They say just fucking walk away, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Get the
but
fuck out of here, walk away. So they
Get 'em
literally
back.
did that. They literally did. They just fucking walked away to defuse the situation.
yeah, that totally makes sense.
They would have
but
brought more of their guns with them though.
I feel like
Kinda irresponsible.
like yeah, they left to make sure that the situation was diffused. But if they
But that gives
hadn't
them the
left,
power.
then you're getting into the area where, hey, maybe things would have gotten violent. I think it
it's a
was just a little
de-escalation tactic.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was just a
we've
little.
done the same thing in the military overseas. Like if we're in a JCOP or whatever, and people are just getting pissed off that we're there, we'll just fucking leave.
Yeah,
We have all authority if we wanted to, just like fine, fuck it, bye, and delete these people. But no, like we're trying to diffuse situations, so we take ourselves out of it. Now they have nobody. We're not there for them to be mad at us. Like
yeah, exactly.
now they're just like screaming at a building. Who the fuck cares? They just look weird.
Exactly.
Yep.
So Evan,
what happened?
Evan, I think was saying something. I kind of want to hear.
Go ahead.
I kind of want to hear their take.
I'm sorry.
Evan?
No, the underwater person.
Evan, yeah. Okay, well,
Yeah,
we'll get
I wanna
back to
hear
them.
their
They're talking to
when
us
they
from the
come back.
Mars rover.
So,
Based.
Apparently.
I spilled water on my mic earlier.
oh, okay,
We
sorry.
can tell. So you're
Go ahead.
literally underwater. We weren't wrong.
I'm like, I got water.
Sorry,
That was
what?
great.
Oh, what did you just say?
Your microphone and a bag of rice.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll maybe come back to them. So okay. I want to I think this comes to a topic that we've talked about before here about like, does it matter if your movement is loved by the media, right? Any like, it seems to me that any actual movement that would challenge power, that's like actually challenging power, that's actually doing anything, would be hated by the media and the people who are in charge of it, right? So like, I mean, looking at how BLM was covered, right, and how most people still think that all those BLM protests, like just almost all of them, were violent, when it was literally the opposite of that, right? Where they're
Some of them
almost
were.
all peaceful, right? So like, it feels like, for me, like, I'm not so worried about like what the media says about any individual thing, right? Like any individual protest, demonstration, movement, right? Like if because they're actually doing work, then the establishment will hate it, right? Because then their power will be challenged. So like, so when I hear Threeglad, and this is not like me attacking you, I want to be clear, but when I hear you say, and other people say the same thing, like, you know, this made this movement look bad, right? Like this made Antifa look bad. Like, so, right? Like, so, like, what if like because the media is going to spin it however they're going to, right? Like they will spin it however they're going to, but like as long as they are actually they're actually accomplishing something positive on the ground. That's all. That's my only litmus test, right? Like looking at what they actually did they actually accomplish something? Was it worthwhile? Sometimes it's not always worthwhile, right? Sometimes what they do is not always worthwhile, and that's something we can criticize them on. But like, did they actually accomplish something here? I think that should be our only test. But other people look at it differently. Like, does it matter if the media is rejecting you? Should you be caring about optics, for instance? What do y'all think?
No, especially not from American CIA-controlled media. Where like, no, I'm not like shut up here. Give me a second. Like, so a lot of media portrayals can be controlled, like, because they don't like. So America likes to, you know, promote, hey, we can change the system through voting, right? You know, what happens when a bunch of really pissed off people say like, fuck your voting, watch what happens when we want what we want and we do what it takes to get that. Like, a positive changes came out of like, I don't care if people want to call them riots, protests, it doesn't matter. Depends on who you are. But like, at the end of the day, what happened because of these? A lot of things that were vocally said by precincts, oh, like, we're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to do this anymore. Got put on fucking paper as law. Like, these are now banned practices by our departments. That's a huge step. Even like in the military and police world and everything, if it's not on paper, it didn't happen. If it's not on paper, it doesn't exist. So the fact that like these verbal agreements were made for media fucking like, you know, jerk offs, like, oh, look, feel good moment, happy dippy time on TV. Now it's on paper, which means like if something happens and this is used in the field and there's documentation of it, that's a fucking lawsuit that can't be fucking, like, it's automatically fucked. Like, the police have no fucking say, oh, he was violent. No, yeah, but this is an illegal practice. You did an illegal practice. So it doesn't matter what happens. So like, there's been a lot of positive changes coming from this movement, even though they might be small. They are small on the scale of what needs to be done, but there's still changes. This movement in the right direction, and it shows people that, hey, if you organize, if you get enough people to fucking bang on drums, bang on doors, start yelling at night, keeping people up, making people angry because they're late to work, I don't care. It's a fucking job. You'll live. You know, other people aren't. We can get change done effectively.
That's how people make their money, though.
Well, fuck it.
And
I don't care.
I mean, fuck them.
Do you know who doesn't get to make any money anymore? Like the dead people, like the people that are locked up for stupid crimes.
So
Wait, they're not dead people. They're just locked up. We should talk about the
Whoa, George Floyd, Charlene Lyles.
List of
I
dead
mean, come
people
on.
are not gonna be able to
I
get
mean,
money.
do you want to talk about
Sorry,
the
hold on. What'd you? Hold on.
like
Hold on.
half a million people who died with COVID?
Hold on. So I just wanted to make sure I heard what you said. Evan, what'd you just say before?
Okay, so the cop did not do anything right in that situation, right? He is a
George
terrible
Floyd
cop.
situation.
Yeah, George Floyd.
Yes. Terrible cop. Didn't
But
deserve anything that came to him, but he did not have a good criminal record.
So
Yo, I don't have a good. Hey, I don't have a good criminal
And?
record. I don't have a
He
good
did
criminal record.
terrible things
Hey,
to
hey,
people
hold up.
That
I don't
doesn't
have
mean
a
you
good
should
criminal
die.
record. Does that mean that my next little fucking minor infraction should result in my death?
You don't
No,
get
that
an
was
oopsie
he didn't do
daisy.
one. He didn't. No, it wasn't one minor infraction. It was multiple.
No,
I'm not
I
saying
have
he deserved to die for
accessory
that.
Right.
delivery.
I'm not defending him.
I have
Okay.
Where's the
law?
everyone, one at a time. Okay, this person is trying to tell us something, so we want to. He can only respond, or they, excuse me, they can only respond to one person at a time. So, Evan, finish your point. Then Maddie, you can go next.
He doesn't deserve to die for what he did, right? But he does deserve to do some time for what he did do that was wrong. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, let's go. Let's go to Maddie. Maddie,
Does your
please.
mom know you're still up?
Matt, hold on.
Can you get bored with Call of Duty, bro?
Please,
There's a reason
stop.
he has his cam
Everyone,
not on.
please. Maddie.
All right.
I bought this up earlier.
Yeah. So, here's the thing: when we look at the records of especially Black men, what you have to keep in mind is this: Black men are far more likely to be targeted for minor infractions, for perceived infractions. So when you look at saying, oh, but they had a record of other things, that doesn't tell us a whole lot beyond, okay, so he's a Black man who exists in a society where he's already has a target on his back by the police department. And to even bring that into the conversation, especially as it pertains to having his life taken by an officer and saying, oh, well, he wasn't a good guy. I think maybe you have to reevaluate. I'm not done, sir, child. I'm not done. I think you have to reevaluate the way you think about what makes a quote good person, or what you think is who you think is worthy of having empathy for. Because just because they have some sort of criminal record, that is not indicative of their value as a human being. And there's a lot of other factors that go into why they might have a criminal record, and maybe someone who is an affluent white man would not.
But Maddie, you neglected to remember that Evan's dad didn't teach him about like the nuances about
Yeah,
racism.
please. Can we actually tackle
I'll
this?
send you some books. I'll send you some books, Evan.
Let's actually tackle this person with some respect.
Did he
Let's
not
just try
really say
to.
that
I'm
he did not
sorry,
deserve to die?
I know.
Sorry.
Didn't George
He did not
Floyd and this
say that he
officer
did not
already
deserve
have
to die.
previous interactions?
Did you miss that whole part?
Like prior to
You
this?
said you.
No, I got you.
No, even the
You
joke
said.
was, "Does your
Oh,
dad
everyone,
break
please stop,
into-"
stop. Hey, knock it off. All right. So we're gonna deal with this person. We're gonna deal with respect. If you can't do that, right? We're gonna treat everyone with respect. If you can't do that, then fucking leave. Stop it. Knock it off now. My last warning, or I will throw you off the panel. Got it? Thank you. All right. Evan, sorry. I think what you were trying to say is that you don't think George Floyd deserved to die.
Yes, he did not deserve to die.
Okay.
But he should be locked up for all the bad stuff that he did do.
Okay. All right.
But did the bad stuff that he did, was that why he was stopped? Or did he get stopped for something completely unrelated?
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Stardust.
How do we know? How do we know
ahead.
that he wasn't? Do we know? Do we know any information about whether he had already served time?
The cop was a bad guy. That's what I'm saying. That the cop was a terrible person.
not
He
the
was
question.
racist. But
Yeah, what I'm asking is, do we have any information about whether he already served time for things?
I don't think it matters.
I think he already
I mean,
did.
it doesn't
I mean-
matter, right? But if that's his argument, I'm trying to
His
I'm trying
argument is
to,
like they had a reason to stop him because he was a bad guy, but they shouldn't have killed him. You know, they shouldn't have gone so far to kill him. That's what he's trying to justify.
You can't.
or
So
say.
okay, real quick, you cannot use somebody's previous record as a justification for stopping them. Like
Thank
they
you.
needed to have been like
Yeah.
in the act of a crime for that to have been like a legal stop. You
I don't
can't
thi-
say
yeah.
this person is shady because they have a criminal record. That if you can't do that. Sorry.
Yeah,
It's the
and
same
you have
as
to
stopping
define
a
what
frisking
you
a
mean
guy
by
'cause
like
he's black or
bad
something.
guy, because there are people who.
That's what I
Yeah, it's
mean.
illegal.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like think about like if you say, oh well, this guy, looks to be a bad guy. Well, why Why? What is giving that
Yeah.
perception? And that's, I think, the inherent
Yeah.
racism that runs rampant, especially in police departments, which is why we see situations like this and incidents that result in violence and, unfortunately, in too many cases, death, because there's that inherent racism where Black men are disproportionately targeted and assumed to be bad actor, and that's regardless of what their actual record is. But again, their record, even if they've served time before, they've done other crimes, they have a rap sheet, that's not enough to stop someone unless they are at that moment in the process of committing a crime.
That is correct.
If I can add on, like, we also, even, like, let's say we entertained that whole thing that you're saying about this person had a record.
Hey,
We don't
Evan.
know
Hey,
that
Evan,
person.
turn off your stream. Turn off that stream now. Thanks. Go ahead.
Even if that person did have a record, right? We don't know, one, if they already served time, right? Or if they already did some sort of service or anything. Two, nobody deserves to die in that manner, let alone just die in general, right? For those crimes. I feel like nobody, like, he didn't deserve to die for the one crime that they stopped him for, and he didn't deserve to die for all the crimes like cumulatively, basically. So.
Crime he was killed for inadvertently was not one even worthy of the death penalty.
Yeah.
No crime is
Also
worthy of the death
abolish the
penalty,
death
but that's another conversation.
No, but I mean, there are people that will argue that, and
But yeah.
I'm not going to argue it because I'm a leftist, so I agree. But there are people who can justify, like, murderers should be killed because A, B, and C. This guy did not fucking do any of that.
It was petty
And
crime.
he was
It was petty crime.
murdered in plain sight of everyone in video, and that is why we had the fucking one of the biggest movements and biggest protests last year.
So if I can
Can
just
I
jump in here
Go
for a
ahead.
moment.
Go ahead, please.
Maybe as an unpopular opinion, I personally think that optics do matter. When you talk about these things, the protests and whatnot. Again, I don't think personally that Antifa. I'm not going to police my own language. Antifa is. I'm not basically. I'm not going to say that they're a dangerous organization or even an organization at all. What I'm saying is the protests were perceived to be violent and dangerous. That was the narrative that was spun by conservative media networks. That was what allowed Trump to call himself the law and order president. That was what allowed him to be able to clear out DC and basically hold up a Bible and basically play the strong man as if he was some kind of hero to conservatives. That's the reason why I think that the optics matter on this. And if you want to run that political calculus and say that it doesn't matter, that's up to you. But the fact is that they do matter, especially to these people on the right. So I'm just unpopular opinion here, but it's just my personal opinion. So.
Can I share like the timeline before George Floyd died?
Is it going to change anything?
I don't know
what does it matter?
Justify his death.
There's a Snopes article. I'd like you to read that first.
No, he committed a crime, and that's why the police pulled him over.
So?
Well,
they pulled him out of the check cashing.
He never
Yeah,
was not
and
driving.
that determined his death, right? It was
No, I never said. Like I said, he did not deserve to die. Right? The cops were bad.
So
So doesn't change anything.
You say that, but you also
the conclusion that you're looking to lead us to. So by pushing this out, I guess, because I think what we hear from you so far, which I think is correct, is like the cop is a shitty person. George Floyd didn't deserve to die. But like in going back through the timeline, I'm just curious, like what is the ultimate conclusion or idea that you're hoping to lead us to? Like, what would be the purpose then of going back and doing this? Because that might just help shape, why you'd bring this information to light or like go back to it.
I don't think he would have died if the cops did not have to pull him over, because the police got calls that he used a fake $20 bill at a
convenience store.
Cut Foods employee called police alleging George Floyd tried to pay with a $20 note, a fake $20 note.
Yes.
And so that's why they pulled him over.
I mean, yeah, he also wouldn't have died if he wasn't born, but I don't understand what that.
What is
So
your
is
point?
that
Yeah.
point that
Why-
like if he hadn't gone, so like I mean I think we're all in agreement that if he hadn't like gone to the store that day, that he wouldn't have died. If he had, but the thing is this: let's imagine, for example, if George Floyd was white, and let's say he still had a criminal record, right? Like let's say he had the exact same criminal record that George Floyd did, right? And someone called because they think, hey, this guy is probably using, I think where he's using a fake $20 bill. So what statistics tell us and what we've seen, and the data shows this, is that the situation that transpired where the police immediately escalated the situation to be a violent encounter, that is far more likely to happen with Black men and women, but mostly Black men, than it would be should it have been a white man. So that decision by the police to immediately escalate the situation and turn it violent, which then resulted in his death, had George Floyd not been a Black man, the police likely would not have done that. And so I think that's, so like, I don't know if it's worth pointing out that like, oh, well, the police were justified in going to that call. Oh, but he had a rap sheet. So obviously he was already, on their radar. Like, fine, we can accept that. However, it's important to look at the dynamics then once that encounter happened and the police were there and thinking about, well, why did it then turn deadly? Would it have been the same way if it were a white man?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Maddie's
so-
right. Like, there's no white male that's ever done the same thing as George Floyd that had his neck crushed. Additionally, a lot of white males who, like, I'm talking conservatives here, who go in and they like shoot up schools or synagogues or whatever, tried to be apprehended alive as opposed to just shoot the kill. And that's not like,
I don't
that's
want to
not
make
like,
a any sort of blanket statements like no white male has ever experienced
Yeah.
this or that,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I mean,
There's
we've
that-
seen
that
we've seen
one-
white men.
Tony Tempo.
Yeah, we've seen white men actually, like on camera, like be killed by the cops, experience
Tempo.
extreme
That's fair.
violence.
Yeah.
By the police. So I just don't want to.
I
gotta
want to
try.
retract that statement.
And that's why
don't
I
mean
said
no
more
white male.
likely.
I just mean most
Right.
white males who do like shootings, like in the because right-wing terrorism's a big thing in the country, and a lot of them do not die. Most of them do not.
Yeah, and that's why I was with my
And most of
language
them
and
kill
describing
themselves,
it.
don't
I
they?
was very careful to say like
Or they
it's
try.
it's more like because of the data we have on like arrests, on what percentage of incidents with police end up becoming violent. Like if had it been a white man, the likelihood that the situation would escalate to where it ended up is far less likely. So yeah, but you're right. Like that's not to say that it doesn't happen, because it absolutely does.
It makes me think of the guy who was the security guy that was trying to like apprehend the white guy with the gun, and then like the police showed up and they shot at him even though he was the security guard.
Yeah.
Like that's the shit we're talking about. That's what we're complaining about, Evan.
There was even a case of a man who was he was a nurse for, I think, for like either an elderly person or a disabled person, and the nurse happened to be Black, or caretaker or whatever he was. I know the police came and like harassed the guy while he was trying to take care of the person he was taking care of. It was a few years ago. I'd have to search for it, but
That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
And there's a
was,
lot of
uh,
shit that we can look up of people.
Yeah, that's
of,
the
like,
problem
white
is
people
so
Sorry,
many
hold on,
instances
hold on,
we
stop,
can,
hold on,
like-
Tiffany, stop. Hold on. Would you say, Eagle? Finish your point.
Oh, I was just gonna say that was it. There's a lot of cases of cops like just stopping Black people for dumb shit. The one that I can think of was the guy that was like outside of his apartment, like picking up trash, and the cop stopped him and harassed him over that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stop and frisks too in New York City, where just people getting stopped.
Seattle.
I wonder how many Yeah, I wonder how many people here would be able to identify a fake $20 note. Maybe you've already passed one around yourself without knowing it.
There's actually pins for that.
Okay.
There's actually what for
Do
that?
you know how to do it?
Yeah,
There are like
Pins.
tests
There
you
are.
can do,
He's
but
right.
Yeah,
There are pins for that.
retailers practice it, I suppose.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've done it.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
that's exactly the
retailers are
point.
trained to-
But that's the point. Like if you do you have the equipment, there's like a marker like that helps you see that, right? You can just. But if you don't have that, the Seattle's point is that you yourself can commit that crime of passing off a fake $20 note. Again, that's even if that's the case. I'm not even sure that actually did happen. But you yourself could pass off a fake $20 bill. But from there, like the police interaction that happened afterwards was completely uncalled for. Did not have to happen. You didn't have to have this foot on his neck. You didn't have to. You could have just questioned him about it, right? There's a million ways that this police interaction could have gone differently, but it didn't, right? And the point is that the statistics say that it's more likely if you are Black and Hispanic too, that you are going to face this type of violence, this type of police interaction, right? Not even that you die, right? Not even talking about death, but that your police interaction will be more violent than if you happen to have been white. That's the point that we're trying to make. Does that make any sense to you, Evan?
Yes.
So I also just looked up an article, pnas.org, not penis.org, pnas.org, which specifically cites that Black men actually have almost I think it's more than twice as likely risk of being killed by police over their lifetime. So, I mean, just generally speaking, they are more likely to be killed by police over their lifetime, probably because they're more likely to have just general interactions with police.
That's a Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. That's what PNAS stands for.
That's correct. I'll link the article on the voice chat as well if you want to read it.
Okay. Sure. So anything else on the George Floyd, or are we moving on to Antifa? We keep like bouncing between the two.
I wanted to bring up one thing if we were just talking about like studies and like how cops can be racist. There is like the Stanford study that went on from 2011 till 2018 with over 95 million traffic stops, where they concluded that if you're Black, you're way more likely to be pulled over during the daytime as compared to your white counterpart. Whereas when it becomes nighttime and a veil of darkness seems to cover your skin color, those rates even out. Also, if you're Black or Hispanic, you're almost twice as likely to be searched during said traffic stop than your white counterpart. Just statistics that like people
exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty based, honestly, from you three. I'm proud of you.
Dude, I'm not Republican. Fuck.
So one of the things that I would like to see is probably more general reform. Like I don't know what else can be done specifically. I'm sure somebody has a specific political agenda that they could line up. Yeah, I see Seattle raising his hand. In terms of things that would specifically be done, I know that as fallout from the Michael Brown shooting in 2012 or 2013, there was much more adoption of say like body cams. Those aren't without
That
their
was
own
that long
problems.
ago? Holy shit.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Those aren't without their own problems and privacy concerns and stuff like that. But obviously there's other things that I don't know if they're as practical as say as a body cam. Like I said, body cams also have their own problems. But anyway.
I would say end qualified immunity, end over policing of minority communities, invest in poor communities so that they have more opportunities and have less incentive to commit crime. Those are my political objectives.
Yep.
Also
Yep.
fix body cams so they can't just fucking turn them
Some
off
of
right before they
those,
do some shady shit.
honestly, your environment is substantiated by like empirical data. So.
Right.
And also, like, don't rely on the police to fill a void that should be handled by like different social services and mental health professionals.
Yes. Why does SPD Seattle Fire report to SPD? Why are they even able to be held out of the Occupy protest after that violence occurred?
Exactly.
That's the question, right?
Right.
Why
Yeah,
are they?
I guess maybe the counter narrative to that, the things I'm familiar with is basically people would say that a lot of times when say like a social worker is called, or situations where people say a social worker should be called, you will come across somebody who's violent and or armed with some kind of a weapon. And therefore that a social worker is inadequate to deal with something like that. So again, not necessarily my point. That's the counter narrative that I've heard before.
Yeah, no, I think that's so. I actually have a close family member who is bipolar type 1 and has, had a full mental break where, and it's someone who is male and like tall and well built. And so this person, when they're in a psychotic state, it can be really scary and intimidating. And I am lucky that my parents happen to live in like a wealthy white suburb where when the police were called at one point, like, it was handled with care and, it was de-escalated. But I can't help but think how terrifying it would be if they didn't live where they did. And we weren't given that privilege and benefit of the doubt that, so many other people wouldn't. And I think if we had social workers or mental health specialists who were trained in de-escalation so that they could make an honest assessment of whether or not this person is a danger, or if they just need someone who understands what's happening to effectively work and bring them back down to a level where they can calm down and not be a threat to others. But because I agree with you, like with some people, that's when you go into like a psychotic state or something, there are some people that have the potential to be violent, and that's the unfortunate reality. But I think I would trust a mental health worker's assessment on whether or not this person is a threat to the safety of others or themselves than I would a police officer who doesn't have that training. So, but I agree with you. Like it's tough.
What is your
Streams?
delay?
You got some
Yo,
echo coming
I
through.
can
Turn
fit
off the
sorry.
stream or something. I don't know, but like mute your stream or something. I want to hear what you have to say. Just mute that and try it again. All right. Well, hopefully he comes back. Sorry, Maddie. What was the last? Oh, you want to try
That
again?
work?
Strings? Go ahead. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Hey, so to the let me see. Who was that? Matty Cakes. So let me ask you this question. You talk mental health professional intervening in a potentially violent and deadly situation. How much time do you have reflex-wise if that person is going to be violent? Are you yourself going to be on the front lines doing what you're suggesting, in that somebody without a gun should go potentially confront a potentially violent situation without a gun? Because let me give you an explanation. Just looking at your face online, you're probably about $140 at your max, probably $120. But I'll give some weight because we want to compare kilos to kilos. I'm not saying you're fat. Don't take it that way. I'm making a point, right? So if you're $120, $140, your average guy, me, I'm a small guy, but your average guy may be around 180, 200 pounds, right? So we can agree on that. They're going to be bigger and badder than you. Weight matters. Now,
Well, they'll
if
be
you-
at least bigger.
what?
Ain't nobody better.
Yeah, no one's
Continue.
better because they're like overweight. Don't
No,
fucking like kid
But
yourself.
if you weigh 200 pounds and you punch somebody in the mouth, you have more mass.
No, if you weigh
Einstein-
200
So here's the
pounds and
thing.
you're, like,
Here's
a
the thing.
fat,
I think
short
I-
stuff. You're like.
I think I
You
see
have
where
more weight
this
behind your
question's
tongue, you're
going. I
fine.
can.
You have more weight.
Sorry. Go ahead, Maddie.
Yeah, so I think I know where this question's going. So I hear you. So the question is like, are you asking to just send in a healthcare worker in a potentially deadly situation, especially if it's someone who is a lot bigger than them, a lot more powerful, especially like a male. So here's the thing. I've been in this exact situation. Okay. Like 120 sopping wet, whatever. Like I've been in this position with a family member where I had to de-escalate, and like a person is psychotic. So
I mean-
like that's like, but and I'm not a mental health worker, but here's the thing. I think there's a way, especially if that 911 is called, where they can ask like, what is the threat level? Is this something where this person is armed or has the potential to inflict like serious bodily harm and is showing a propensity to do that. Because there's a difference between someone who's freaking out and maybe they're big and they look intimidating, but with the right interaction can be de-escalated. Otherwise, what you're doing, if you're bringing in someone with a gun to that situation who isn't trained in dealing with someone who is either schizophrenic or bipolar or is having any sort of other mental break, when they are not trained in how to address that and how to get that person to a point where they can calmly, go to a mental health care facility or be okay, you're immediately escalating the situation and then putting their life in danger. And that's the difference. So it's like, I understand that, they're like, oh, but it's terrifying and like, oh, would you put someone directly in harm's way? But the reality is this, and I also want to make this extremely clear. The vast majority of people who are schizophrenic and who are bipolar, both type 1 and type 2, when they have any sort of psychotic break, the vast majority are not violent. And that is extremely important to remember.
So
So
how about
these
this,
cases,
Maddie?
when we come up with boogeymans and we come up with, oh, but you're going to put them directly in harm's way, that is not the vast majority of these cases. So when we try to put a blanket term and call these people crazy, that is not an accurate reflection of what is happening in that situation.
So
And why can't
so I
men
would
be
pivot to
social
this
workers?
Exactly.
Just to kind of
Can
close
I
it
say
out,
something real quick?
Maddie, on your point, just if I can, and
Mhm.
instead of a 911 system, maybe we need a two-tiered system. Maybe you
I'd
need
love
for
that.
emergency services an 811 or a 911. And if you
I'd
call
love that.
811, you get your social worker. You get what you want,
Mhm.
right? What you desire. And I can compromise with you on that. But if you tell me that 911 is not going to send a cop with a gun to my house, I'm not okay with that. How about a two-tier system?
I
Sounds
would
good.
love that.
Can I
I
say
think that'd be
something?
fantastic. Yeah.
So
Can I say something real
Okay.
quick?
hold on 1 second. We'll get to you, Evan. I
Common
promise.
ground.
We'll get to you. But my problem with this Maddie is like I'm already hearing what a conservative would say. In fact, I engaged with a conservative about this a long time ago. And he made some interesting points. That like, so you as a layperson, right? You're making a judgment call as to the threat level, right? Like this. So it's very important, as we definitely know, what dispatch relays to cops, right? Sometimes they miss details, right? And that has big consequences and all that. But to ask like a layperson to say like, okay, like what kind of armed response should we deploy here, right?
Sure.
Maybe they're right on the money, or maybe they're definitely wrong, right? So it seems like it would be a difficult thing in practice to put that on a person, especially in a stress situation, right? Because maybe
Totally.
that person thinks it's a really big deal, right? Like you, a woman, like you said, 120 pounds, right? And a very large man, maybe a family member or something, right? Who is not within his right mind, and you are fucking terrified, right? And you're like, you got to bring SWAT or whatever, because
Right.
you think, and maybe for good reason, I don't know, but that he might hurt you. But maybe it's something that could be calmed down otherwise. So to put that on a civilian, it seems like a tall order. What do you think?
Why are
No,
they
I think that's
civilians?
I think that's a really good point, because you're right. Like we're as civilians not trained to like assess threat level and be able to say definitively like, no, this person is not a risk, or oh, this. I think we're more likely to try to be cautious and be like, well, I don't know if they're a risk or not, but better safe than sorry. But I also think that that's a problem that's already kind of inherent within our system when you think about people calling 911 and trying to relay that information and what level of force is then required to address it. And I think one of the ways that might help, and again, I wish I knew more about this, but I think in the questions that, because you only have a certain amount of time depending on how close you are to the situation, because you want to get help there quickly. I think if there's a way to develop questions that the dispatcher would ask to clarify certain things, I think there's a way for them to then make a more informed decision on what exactly the threat level is. I think a lot of it too is about educating the public, unfortunately, about like, hey, when you make call, like what constitutes a call worthy of like 911 or whatever. But I don't know the right answer, because you're right. Like it's putting a lot on the people who are reporting on it and trying to get help, because the assumption shouldn't be that they're going to know what the correct call is, right? But
So we got a few people in line, but like yeah, and just on the other side of that, I'll add one thing. Like what if that person does isn't particularly charitable to the supposed perpetrator's race, right? Then you're relying on them to tell what kind of response is needed. So it's a tough question. So I don't have answers for this. I'm just saying it's tough. So
no,
let's
it's a
go to
question.
let's go to hold on. Let's go to Evan, Seattle, and then Three Glad.
Okay, so what I think we could do is put more money into police training so they know how to de-escalate. But whenever we have protesters trying to defund the police, it's harder for them to have training to be able to de-escalate these situations.
What do you think people mean when they say defund the police?
Thank you for
Take
asking.
money away from their funding.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but what
Okay.
kind of funding? So I also like some of the things that a lot of police departments also spend a lot of money on are things like, so the military has an excess of weapons and like military grade equipment. Exactly. Things that you would see in war. Believe it or not, there are police departments with honest to God tanks. So
Portland
I
PD
think
just got one.
yeah, so I think when we talk about defunding the police, we're not saying like, well, certain people are abolitionists, but that's a topic for another day. But when we say defund, we're saying, hey, rather than invest in all this like high-tech weaponry and other things, maybe we can take that money and shift it to some of the social services that we've kind of expected the police to fill the gaps of. So like at schools, for example, I don't know, maybe at your school, a lot of schools have what are called resource officers, or essentially like officer. Yeah. So you may have one. Well, that person, that their salary and everything comes from the police budget. So a lot of people say, well, hey, instead of having the police cover that job, maybe it makes sense to shift more money to the school budget, so that the schools can ensure that there's, safe and secure, and that the students have the resources they need. That doesn't have to come from the police or have like a police presence. So that's sort of the difference, is that it's not just saying like, no, we're going to take your money. It's saying like that money, like we're already kind of expecting the police to wear a number of different hats that they really don't need to, because there are other people that are maybe more specialized that would do a better job.
Yep. So here's an easy one. We take 911 out of the chain of command of the police. We give them a separate contract. We give them separate negotiating rights and a totally like separation of powers. And guess what? That's what we call defunding the police. It doesn't mean that we eliminate all these jobs. It's we break up the chain of command and we make sure that there's no mutual influence going on.
Okay.
Or another easy way of saying it is just demilitarize the police.
Um,
Sort of gets to the point
I'd
of it.
also love that.
We'll go to Three Glad, then we'll go to Strings.
I was just gonna okay, so potential solutions. I guess we kind of already covered this at this point, but it's just better training the officers in like conflict de-escalation, and like that can come from things like quote unquote defunding the police. Like you defund from like some of their military things, like or maybe even okay. So here's an example: the Portland Police Department, Portland Police Bureau, they spent $1.14 million in just like dealing with like lawsuits that like they caused by their own negligence. So maybe if we train them in conflict de-escalation, we wouldn't have to spend so much money dealing with these lawsuits in the past. So that's like, I don't know. That's kind of like one example that I can just
No,
instantly think of off
exactly.
the
When
top of my
people
head.
say defund the police, they don't mean like obliterate the police. They mean like there's a lot on police officers' shoulders that should not be on there. For example, social issues, like if someone is having like a mental breakdown and it's like psychological, they should not be able to like de-escalate it without someone who is like a mental health expert on like site.
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany,
the
would you
police
call it an
just-
optics or communication problem? People
It depends on the
misunderstanding
individual. What do you mean optics and communication?
when people hear defund the police, they think you mean
Oh no
completely
no!
defund
Oh
the
wait,
police.
you're talking about the phrase?
Yes.
Oh no, yeah. Like to be fair, defund the police is not a great phrase because when most people hear defund the police, they think obliterate the police, which is not accurate, but that's how most people take it.
Right.
When people like me, leftists, say defund the police, they want to allocate the specific issues to different parts of the government, or I don't know, whatever social structure is involved, and like the police just have their own like little
I think we got it. So I want to move on. I gotta get down the line of people here. But to Three Glad, and to everyone else, right, who mentioned the same thing, like in terms of police training, I think we could tell that that the police, I mean, they have this training has been done, right? Like, I feel like. So we've had this conversation over the years many times, right? Like we had it during the Obama administration, we had it during the Trump administration, we have it again during the Biden administration. Like, oh, they just need more training, right? They just need more training. Well, one, sure, okay, I guess, but like we've done this. We've done this and we've seen no improvement. And in fact, the city where George Floyd was killed, right, Minneapolis, is part of a program where they got like bad extra trainer. Like during the Obama administration, it's like, oh, when BLM first popped off, they said, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to actually give them exactly the training you're talking about. And then this still happens, right? This level of violence still happens to individuals. So I think it's a deeper issue within there. It's like, it's not because when you say simply it's a matter of training, then that means it's a matter of the individual officer. Well, this individual officer, he made a bad decision here, right? True, yes, he did. But why did he think that he could get away with it? Like, what was all the mindset that went into that? Were these officers surprised afterwards when there was a blowback to them? I'm guessing they were, because for a lot of these officers we've seen, they're being filmed doing something clearly abusive, right? The crowd is telling them they're doing something really abusive, and other officers who are watching this are doing nothing. Salton and George Floyd, there's a slew of others, right, where you see there's abusive officers and then officers standing right by, right, doing nothing, because this is standard practice for them. This is just how they operate. This is just what they do. And so,
a counterpoint.
And so hold on. And so the issue here, the issue here is much deeper. Like, this is a systemic problem. This is a set of laws, a set of practices, a set of norms, right? Institutionally, it's embedded in to that, and not just the cops, right? Because the cops are just the public face of the state, right? The fist of the state. But like, it's the prosecutors behind them, right? It's the lawmakers behind them, prosecutors, in terms of what who they'll go after, right? What type of person will actually face charges, will actually be taken to court, and the lawmakers who empower them with by making some things like illegal, like in terms of like the crack cocaine disparity, right? That crack would send you to jail for much longer than the same amount of cocaine. Why? Because they're slightly chemically different, right? Or is it because a certain group of people was thought to more likely use crack than another group of people, right? Like, all these things add up to that moment where Derek Chauvin had his has a knee on George Floyd's neck. It's all connected, so it all needs to be tackled. So yeah, so just saying training is not enough. Does that make sense to you, Three Glad?
Yeah, I wanted to offer a solution that, like, so I guess when I say training, like in my personal like worldview, it doesn't just end at training. I think like another good place to go is ending qualified immunity. So like they're not so if your police officers are like just being completely like terrible people, you can sue them. Kind of like if your doctor commits malpractice, you can sue them. Not necessarily to say that those cases are always easy to win, but just to say that like they're available. So it's you versus the police officers. So Like, it's not gonna be like, oh, they made a mistake, and then the city pays the fucking mistake for them, and like they suffer no consequences. Like, no, it's like their livelihood, like their entire life could be changed by their mistake that changed somebody else's life. So
I
that's
think it's a drastically
a
different
good solution.
situation. A doctor is not putting his own life on the line most of the times to treat somebody else.
Let's go to Strings and then Stardust, who had her hand up a while ago. Hopefully you didn't forget your point, Stardust. You always picked your point. Strings.
All right. Yep. Hey, Prime, I got 2 points. I'll keep it quick. One, thank you for the damn well good interjection you made. You brought up systemic. And I say this, man, to the cops who stood there while George died. George, he fucked up, man. He got himself in his own pile of shit. He did that. Nobody forced that on him. But putting your neck on a motherfucker, that's how you kill somebody. We're taught it from day one. You go for the carotid. It's right here. If you look at my neck, you want to kill somebody, you go about right here and you cut off blood flow. Takes about 10 seconds. If you get both, they're gone. And you do what you do. You move on to the next. All those cops that stood by, they're equally as guilty. Here's where I have a problem. Systemism, all the isms, it's society as a whole, Prime. All the cops were standing around doing nothing. Why the hell did the citizens not do anything? The people who took the footage and all they did was sit there and record. They did a good thing by recording and showing people what's going on. But until you take action and you do something kinetically and physically, you're just a bystander. Now, on that, I want to pivot to what Fab White Boy said before I got in on this chat. You said there is no crime worthy of death. I'm going to give you an example. I'm a father. I'm 38 years old. I got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old upstairs. My son is 8. My daughter is 4. I live in South Carolina. If you were to break into my house and rape my daughter, I can put a canoe in your head and go to sleep at night, not going to jail. The DA is not going to charge me. We're not going to waste taxpayer dollars. And you, the scumbag who raped my daughter, you're dead. So why
Did you say
should...
a canoe?
Yes, I would put a canoe in your head if you raped my daughter.
Canoe paddle, apparently, right? That's what you said?
Yeah, you put a canoe through their head, but that's another story. So here's
I'm
my
just
question.
picturing a whole entire
You
canoe.
said there's no
I'm gonna go to
crime
bed.
worthy of death. And on this crime, I got to leverage it.
Have a good day.
Dylan Roof. Is
Bye,
Dylan
Evan.
Roof
Said
worthy
hi.
of death?
Bye.
See you.
Go
Hi,
ahead.
Evan.
Yep. Thank you.
Bye.
Go ahead, Strings, please.
Yeah,
feel like we educated
so
him.
for Fab White Boy, and because of your channel and the whole reason I watch your channel, Prime, holy fuck, this is a leftist channel. I'm in dangerous territory. But I respect you. I respect what you do and how you handle it, man. So if I'm gonna talk politics, this is where it's at. So Fab White Boy, this is on you. Dylan Roof, that's my hometown, my friend. I lived in Mount Pleasant. I lived in Charleston. I lived in West Ashley. While I've never attended Mother Emanuel, I promise you it happened about 3 miles from my house. That asshole, he can fry. They could have put a bullet in his fucking head and I wouldn't care. So my question to you is this: does he not deserve death for what he did to those 9 people? And I'll leave it at that. I'm going on mute. Thank you for your time, Prime.
Wow, what a rambling pile of half incoherent nonsense involving a canoe. But I loved every second. of it.
Let Fab respond. Go ahead, Fab.
Whenever I say like someone doesn't deserve death for a crime, I don't believe a state should be able to kill their citizens for any crime. Some of the examples that you gave were self-defense and perfectly justifiable actions that someone can take in self-defense. Now, if that person commits a crime and is caught by the state, tried and found guilty, I don't believe that the punishment should then be death. I don't believe in the death penalty.
Systems.
I just don't believe. No, I just don't believe in the death penalty. I don't think that there's.
What if it was your
restorative
family?
or punitive?
What if it was your mother who died? I mean, have you read what happened in Charleston, dude? Have
I,
you read how
I,
evil
I,
that dude
my
is?
no, my stance on the death penalty is not like there's no exception to it. No,
But
if
there
it's
has
someone,
to be an exception. Have you read what he or others?
No,
I,
there
like
doesn't
him
no,
have
there
to
is.
be.
That
What the
doesn't
fuck?
have to be.
Yeah,
There doesn't have
Strings,
to
you're
be.
trying to
My
argue against his personal morals, and that's
my personal yeah my
an
personal
argument
moral
that's not
Yeah.
going to
belief
go
is that
anywhere.
no one
Strings,
deserves death.
morality is subjective, so his morals are going to be based off of his personal experience and shared
Yeah.
experience of people like him, whereas yours are obviously wrong.
Yeah. No, I didn't say that. Samantha said that. I didn't say that. Attack Samantha.
I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you.
So yeah,
So
like
you're wrong.
that's my belief that no one deserves death, no matter what they do, no matter what they do.
Yeah, and I would say
When you say, but when you say
I
death,
can-
you're referring to death by the state, right?
Death by the state.
Yeah, death by the state. Yeah.
I'm actually I'm for death by the state. I actually encourage death by the
But-
state.
True.
No
but I'm
more,
just
no
gonna
more
call
have
you
I
out.
encouraged more state-sponsored death than
Of cour-
January 6th.
Fab, I just got to
Yeah.
say this.
Of
I
course you
don't
do,
agree
Tanky.
with you. And I want to say that I do not agree with you. But if you're in my country, America, and that's a conversation for a different route, I respect what you say, and I respectfully disagree. And that is the beauty of this country.
Yep. Same to you, sir.
Wait, hold on. Whose country?
This land that we call America.
Ours.
We fought
Our
many battles
country.
over it, and the current colors.
Does anybody know where I was going to take this joke next?
Yeah, I know exactly where you're gonna take it. No,
Thank
you.
Somebody get me Lady Raincloud. I need
Stardust. Stardust. Thank you for. You were gonna say something? Did you forget? You didn't forget this time, right?
I forgot,
Oh,
but
God damn it.
I forgot.
Write it down. Stardust, please write them down.
Notepad.
Open Notepad and write them down.
Generally, like by the time it's moved on anyways. Like I still can't. But I can say I know it's like kind of often. I still can't get with that like theory that like about the media, man. I just can't like the
media, man.
Just can't.
There's no
The
theory. There's no like
media.
I don't know. There's no theory that there's like that. I think that's what that's the rub of that issue, Stardust, is that you're kind of anyone who tells you that like there's like some sort of like large group that is like propagating or like planning out this theory are crackpots and idiots and that they don't know what they're talking about. But the part that they are exaggerating off of is that all media has a bias. So they are taking the fact that all media has a bias, and then they are going from that point to then saying that there is some sort of like conspiracy to have a bias, and that's false. And no one in their right mind is actually saying that. No one in their right mind.
Apparently.
Well, yeah, no one with concept of reality is saying that.
Yeah.
Anyone who not to offend or to insult anyone you know who does say that, but like it's just like
Well, I think that it's just the issue is I've seen it like that's what I meant. Like I've seen these similar like kinds of things, and it's I don't know. It's just obviously like there are crazy people, on no matter where you go. But yeah, I guess that's just like yeah.
So I had a
the whole
question.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, Stardust, you weren't done. Finish your point.
I was just rambling. It's okay.
So I actually when Strings was talking, he had brought up 2 points. One was I forget the first point, but the second point was one about the death penalty. I'd like to ask him if he could repeat that first point because I had a response to that, but his second point was so long I forgot the.
I'm sorry. The death penalty, yes. So back to Fab White Boy. He mentioned no crime should be punished. And my response, because this is a leftist.
No crime should be punished by death. To be clear,
That was his second point. That was his second point. What was his first
The
point?
canoe in the head? Is that
My first point
No.
was, to answer your question, fucking Eagle Eye, is that crime. He started speaking about when I was trying to figure out what the hell I was trying to say, because there were a lot of points raised before I got in the channel that I disagreed with. And he kind of focused it and he brought up systemic racism. That's what we're talking about. And my point is that, when you look at law enforcement and you look at what it's like to be a black man or a black woman or whatever thing we want to throw at law enforcement, the facts don't lie. If you're black, you can have a harder time with law enforcement. I can't say you can't. But my thing is that he was talking about Derek Chauvin, got the knee on the neck, and those other assholes, right? And I say assholes, and I come from a Marine Corps background. I served 9 years, 2 months, and some days. I'm sorry, if you're wearing a badge, if you're wearing a uniform, and you're witnessing something that is against the rules of warfare, the Geneva Convention, and a whole bunch of other shit they pump in your head, you have an ethic and a moral responsibility to actually physically, no shit, you're fucking standing there kneeling on somebody's neck and you're breaking the law. I have an ethic responsibility to pull my 9mm, my 40 cal out of my waist, point it at your head, and say, you're under arrest. But nobody in this case did that. And that's
Sure, there are
a
other ways to
systemic.
de-escalate than pulling out your gun.
Yeah. That was okay. That was the people that were bystanding that didn't do anything. That was what I wanted to respond to.
Correct. And
So
yeah, why didn't the bystanders challenge the cops?
They didn't want to get shot.
bystanders,
guns
bystand.
You
Wow,
have quantity.
They were cops.
Holy
This is-
shit.
I think your point was
Because,
better when you're
because you want to
focusing
know what
your
happens when
on
people
cops.
challenge cops? They
No,
get
it's
shot.
just-
They
I
get
don't
No,
killed.
they don't. No, they don't.
They
Let me
absolutely
back
Yeah.
up.
really
Yeah, hold on,
Give
hold
me
on.
60
Whoa,
do
seconds.
tell.
Strings.
Give me 60 seconds. I'll explain it, and it'll make
No,
everybody.
here's the thing. Like I've worked in this field across different branches and different contract companies, right? If I was in the middle of detaining somebody and you pulled a weapon on me, I'm now going to forget about that dude I'm detaining and eliminate you as a threat.
Are you? What if I have
Yes.
quantity? Let me give you an example.
No.
Wait for
No.
it. I'm going to give you
No.
an example. No, you wait.
Finish your point.
Let him finish his point.
January 6th. January 6th. What happened? You're going to stop people? It doesn't work that way. It's not realistic in quantities. And regardless of your views on the Capitol and which law enforcement officers are racist and Nazis and the KKK and all that bullshit, what it matters is quantity. And so my question is this with what Prime brought up. There is systemic racism in America. I don't doubt that. I don't agree with white privilege and all that shit, but that's why I'm on a channel like this, to understand. I want to learn. I want to be the dumbest person in the room with 2 ears and 1 mouth and do just that.
You are.
So here's my challenge.
No,
Instead of filming
stop.
the cops or instead of filming people breaking the law, why don't you as a people, America, us, do something about it? Stop this
Cops
recording.
have okay, easy. Cops have guns. We don't.
So do I.
There you go.
Let's say it's a 50-year-old
You
woman.
might
Let's
have
say
a
it's
gun.
50-year-old
Hold on,
woman with
hold
her
on.
2 kids. Should they
Go ahead,
attack
Maddie.
a cop? Like if
What?
it's a 50, let's say for example,
Never mind.
because
Whatever.
do this. If there's a 50-year-old woman or a 55-year-old woman, she's there with her 2 kids. They're 9 and 10. Should she then go jump on the cop? Even though people,
Does
it's
she
okay
have
for
numbers?
people to have fear of bodily harm.
You need
know?
numbers,
That's
Maddie.
like
Okay,
no,
need
you
numbers.
don't. But you
Your
need numbers, but you
numbers
don't get the
argument is so
benefit.
weird.
You don't get the benefit of that. You don't get to choose what situation you're in. You may be witnessing this happening, and you're the only one there. Like
Agreed.
you don't get the benefit of having. So you're not obligated. That is not on other people. It is not the fucking bystanders' fault that the police are fucking abusing their position, and they're sitting there with guns, with tasers, with
Is
with
it?
guns and things that could cause serious bodily harm, and people are just going about their day, and they're expected to jump and potentially risk their
Yes,
life.
you are under
No,
the.
absolutely not. I
Read
fucking
your
reject that.
Constitution.
That's
Okay,
that
it
is
is
literal
hold on.
insanity.
No,
So hold on.
no.
It's got to be one at a time. One at a time. So let Strings respond to this, and we'll go down the line. Okay, promise. Go ahead.
Okay, so Maddie, to answer your question directly, yes, ma'am. It is absolutely expected of you as an American citizen to stand up when the wrong is done, and it's listed in our 10th Amendment. All the rights and the powers delegated to the government. In the end, it's left on you as the individual to exercise the rights not taken from you. And so what I mean from that is that society as a whole is fucked up right now because we would rather record and be on TikTok than to actually go help Granny who's choking. And that was my point, man.
Yes, that is a one or the other situation.
Okay,
So while you
Strings,
might
I
view
just
it as
wanna make this
recording,
known. I just want to
some
make
view it
this
as
known. People
documenting.
like you are why I support red flag laws. I would absolutely fucking worry about you owning a firearm.
Oh, I'm disappointed. I thought you were going to
So-
take him in your Vanguard army.
Fuck this
I
guy.
own
Let's go to
my AR-15.
let's go to Eagle
My
Eye.
AR-15 is 4 foot from me. Why do I scare you?
Everybody's already said my take for me. It's fine.
Okay.
Life
well,
isn't Call
somebody
of
else.
Duty. Jesus.
Guns don't kill people. People kill people,
Oh
dude.
boy.
Oh
Whoever
no.
that was.
That's
The,
fake.
Kicking it old school, that one.
Oh, quiet,
That's a good song,
Mom.
dude.
Whoever that was. Hi, I'm Samantha Banana, a reformed libertarian. Spent 13 and a half years in the United States Army. Was infantry, been around guns, have a lot of guns, fuck around with guns, know how to use guns, like to train people on guns. People like you spreading this type of bullshit is dangerous and irresponsible.
and see, that's
Do
fighting
not,
words.
do
And you
not,
cannot do
do
that,
not.
sir.
I just
You cannot
don't
do
call me
that.
sir.
You
Who the
cannot
fuck are you?
threaten people like that.
Dude, I will
You
verbally
don't
skull
tell
fuck
me
you. Don't call me
that
sir.
I'm dangerous. You cannot do that.
You-
That's
I just did.
dangerous.
I
That's
just
calling
did.
people Nazis.
I
And
didn't
it's
call
not
you Nazi.
far from calling
Wow.
people the N-word. So you don't threaten people.
What?
Okay, first, let me rebuttal. Prime, give me-
Okay, there,
hold
Stretch
on, hold on,
Armstrong.
give me
Holy
60
shit.
seconds. Give me 60 seconds. One, I'm not a sir.
I
Two,
get
that-
heated
hold on,
when
shut up.
you don't know me from
Shut
Bob,
the fuck
but
up,
you're
shut the
gonna
fuck
say
up,
that
shut
I'm
the
a
fuck up,
dangerous
shut the
person.
fuck
Okay,
up.
okay, all right, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time, one at a time. Okay, okay, one
Strings.
time.
Here's your little bit of education. One,
Education. Educate me, please.
shut up and listen. Remember,
Speak.
be the dumb guy, open your ears, close your mouth.
When you're talking shit, man.
Okay, everyone, stop. Knock it off right now, please. All right.
One,
So one at a time.
I'm not
Go
a
ahead.
sir. One, I'm not a sir. Two, that's your first warning. Three, do that again, I will verbally skull fuck you. Four, it is
Okay.
dangerous. It is dangerous to spread that type of rhetoric because if people go out and listen to you and that bullshit line you spread, you're going to get people killed if they do that. You pull a gun on a cop, you're going to get killed.
Is that right? You're gonna tell me about my life? I pulled a gun on a cop, so don't tell me what the fuck happens.
Would you like me?
That doesn't
Do you
surprise me.
understand? Do you understand what an anecdote is?
Yeah. So
what?
let's try and move on. Three Glad, you want to say something?
Yeah, I just like Strings. I don't think that I don't think Samantha was like directly threatening you. I think that
I
she
feel
was
very
just
threatened
what?
when you accuse me that I'm not capable of exercising my Second Amendment right. That is fighting words, and you cannot do that. And that's part of the country.
Nothing about
just did.
brandishing.
Hold on,
I
Strings.
just
So
did.
you say
Okay.
Well,
Strings.
to be,
You just
to be
said
fair, let me just say, to be fair, you people were questioning his fitness, and I don't think that's fair.
so, and then he's going
Judgment.
to start
that
going
bad white
saying
boy?
like he feels
Was that you that
threatened
just offended me?
and starts
What?
cutting
That was
people
not me.
off,
That was
and
not
that's
just
appropriate
me.
behavior.
Don't yell at me.
So I wasn't
And this-
yelling. I was just somebody defended me just now, and I thought it was you because the green square highlighted.
No, it was me. It was me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was Jugsy. That was Jugsy. Just came in.
Yeah, I took really great offense. And let me. Okay, so Comrade Samantha, I'm
You
sorry. I
take great
called you-
offense at me.
No, no,
I
not,
didn't
not
took
you,
offense.
not you.
You took offense. Would you like to
Comrade
say, please?
Samantha, pronoun problems, right? We cannot agree on this, and I apologize if I offended you. But let me explain to you why I got heated. You accused me of not being stable. I served 9 years, 2 months, and some days in the Marine Corps. I've been to Iraq 3 times and Afghanistan once. Don't tell me about stability. That's how you get. That's why That's why fighting words is it. It's been deliberated on. There's no free speech there. You may disagree with America and free speech, but there are certain things that you cross over, and you want to fight people, dude. Don't keyboard cowboy like that. If you want to come fight me, I'll give you my address. We'll go in my backyard.
So let's.
Oh
we
my
can't
God.
even encourage
QS,
violence.
come
We
on,
can't
come on,
even
come on.
not even we can't even do that here. So
Strings, can I finish my point now?
Sorry, Prime.
no problem. Go ahead.
Holy
Be glad. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thanks. Yeah, like I guess to finish, I don't think she was like I see that you view it as fighting words, but I don't think she was trying to like threaten you in any way. I think it was just more so like her opinion of you, and that kind of like goes back to like it's I don't know. That's just her personal.
Don't you see
opinion.
that the fact that somebody has a
The end.
different opinion than you and your response is to say those are fighting words, doesn't that kind of prove, not even prove, but
But that's
doesn't
not
it
an
give hold
opinion. Okay,
on.
sorry.
Hold on. Doesn't that kind of give a little credence towards the notion that you might be maybe someone who maybe someone like us might think shouldn't have a gun? I don't know. Your response right now and your reaction is not proving that you're someone who's stable to have a gun.
Flip
I don't
your
know.
conversation. Flip it on its politics on its head 180, and then you be the minority. Right now, the conservatives in our form of government are the minority. And it's scary when
By
you're
one vote by one vote in the
Does that
Senate.
change your skin color?
No, I'm not talking skin color. What I'm saying is that I felt
Holy
very
shit.
personally attacked when you questioned whether or not I should have a gun, which was given to me not by the government, according to my faith. It was given to me by God, and our government recognize that. And for you
Whoa.
to say that I cannot have an amendment to protect myself against people like you who would do me harm, perhaps, that is.
I'm gonna do you harm.
Okay, hold on. The fact that you just said that Sky Daddy, Magical Sky Daddy, gave you your right to own guns proves.
Are
my
you going to
point.
say that?
Proves
Are
my
you going to
point.
say
Don't
that to
finish, come on.
somebody who is not a
Yes.
Christian? Are you
Yes.
going to say that to a Muslim who would cut your head off?
Yeah.
Be careful where you tread. It's not safe to do those things, and it's not right.
Yeah, you're
Because
proving-
I'm
you're
calm,
proving my
It's
point.
called.
Yeah,
Isn't,
hold
wait,
on.
hold on. Isn't that freedom of speech?
Oh man.
Isn't that the God-given freedom of speech?
But you don't
Remind
disrespect
me.
people's religion.
man.
That's
So-
wrong.
But isn't that
You-
freedom of
you
speech?
did not see what
Oh,
they did.
I do find it
I'm not
hypocritical that we
disrespecting
don't
your
come to defend
religion.
people's
I'm disrespecting
religion.
you.
So
I'm
Did we
disrespecting
not
you,
watch
not
what
your
happened
religion.
But real
in
quick,
Israel?
but real
your
quick,
mental
hold on.
capacity.
But that's the ability to disrespect your religion. That is freedom of speech, right?
I agree. But do you dare
Okay.
do that to somebody who is Islamic? Do you dare do that?
Yeah.
To
I have.
Yeah.
In Afghanistan, I have in
Okay,
Iran, I have in
okay.
Syria, I have in
can
Iraq.
introduce you to some very unsavory characters. who
Please
would
don't
hunt
say
you
it. Don't
down
say it again.
and do
Please
bad
don't.
things.
I don't think you're getting her to back down.
Everyone, please don't. Okay, so strings.
You can't. You cannot disparage
strings.
Christians while refusing
I'm
to
not.
disparage
I'm not.
Muslims.
I'm not disrespecting your faith. I'm
You
disrespecting.
did. You
your-
just called him a sky daddy.
No. Yeah, I'm disrespecting your mental capacity.
Yes, and other religions would do violent things to you, and thank God you
They tried.
in America.
Okay.
They protect you from those things.
So
That's
I
not
protected
fair.
myself. Thank you.
I don't even know where we're going with this. Holy crap.
Okay,
I
Sky
don't know.
Daddy did not give you your right to own guns. Okay, just I want you to understand the fact it was the law called, based under the Second Amendment and whatever your state regulated that you could have and own. Right, your state, if they have passed a law that says you can't have certain things, you have certain things. Right, you can go to jail or face fines, or they can repossess those from you. Correct, unless you're
Agreed.
someone like me with an FFL. Now, so
You
since
have an
you're on-
FFL?
Yes.
They just
Okay.
said they served in the military. Oh my god.
I served in the military 13 and a half. Are you paying attention, or are you just like off in La La Land with Sky Daddy?
Okay.
See, there you go again.
so-
that would get you punched in the mouth in real life. You cannot do that.
Hey,
Samantha,
not,
bro.
whoa, bro, seriously, strings.
We're not
Need to
going to
understand.
insult each other.
Hold on, stop. Strings. Last time, I can't have that. You're gonna fuck my channel. Don't fuck my channel, all right? You can't even approach that here. Last time,
Okay.
seriously. Okay. All right, fair enough. And can you understand why it might be a problem to say that, like, to imply that Islamic people will necessarily commit violence against someone for
No, I
questioning?
wasn't implying it. I was just bringing up, like, with what ISIS did recently. We saw what they did in Jordan. They took the Jordanian fighter pilot. They set him on fire for daring to talk against their God. It's dangerous when you do that.
So-
and if we're going to be progressive in the sense that it's not okay to insult a religion, please God, don't
I
insult mine.
totally feel you there. Now that makes sense. So that's different from what you said previously. Before you just said
Yeah,
Islamic.
sorry, Strings.
Yeah.
Sorry, Strings. In
Hold on,
my
hold on,
people's
no,
history,
you're
the
about to
Christians came over to
antagonize.
this country and killed and
Hold
raped
on,
us all.
you're about to do an antagonizing thing. So hold on. Let me just get this point out. So that's different from what you said previously when you said just Islamic person, whatever, right? Instead, now you bring up ISIS, so a terrorist group committing violence. We understand that's a thing, right? But we know that our Muslim brothers and sisters here are not all terrorists, right? They don't all
Agreed.
commit violence against people. So if you just say Islamic,
Agreed.
that's what people hear. They're like, oh, you think
Then I
all Muslims?
apologize.
Okay, fair enough.
It's so hard to get such a heated. My only point was that people love to hate on Christians, but they're afraid to hate on other religions, and for good reason.
On this channel, we've challenged all religions, all of them.
Speaking of religion,
oh boy.
Yeah, we just had a burqa and hijab
your,
debate
your,
earlier
your
today.
boy
Yeah.
Sevatar here, the relative anti-theist here, constantly saying that I believe that all religion has ultimately outlived its usefulness, and I want to slowly but surely get rid of it. Like I shit on all religions constantly. I even shit on scientism, which I consider to be a religion.
But you can't do it personally in the context of a conversation like pointing to Sky Daddy when you're talking
whoa.
to Bob.
Can
Why
you
not?
use
Why
religion
not?
as a shield for
Because
anything?
that's fighting words. You can't.
Why are
do
those
that.
fighting
Why-
words?
why-
Why do you
whoa,
assume
whoa,
that
Actual
you have
hate
to
speech
fight
as
over?
it's
Why
actual
why
hate
are you
speech.
so fragile? Hold on real
Yeah,
quick.
I'm
Why are you
not
so fragile
fragile.
about your listen, let me finish. Why are you so fragile about your religious beliefs that somebody saying Sky Daddy is like just that unsavory to you? Like what's the deal?
Because I can show
If
you
you
the
know it's
image.
true, if
I
you
can
know it's
show you-
true,
Are you gonna let me
Then
finish?
turn the
I
other
can-
cheek.
Let,
Jesus
let
said
him
turn the
finish.
other cheek.
Let him
Agreed.
respond.
Jesus said you should turn the other cheek. I cannot agree with you more. I'm a piss poor example of a Christian, but hey, I believe. Anyways, the point I was making is that if you disparage certain religions in 2021 and you do it in a very public way, odds are you may die. That's just the reality of it. Okay? I'll
Yes,
leave
we're
it at
saying that ought not happen.
I agree. It should not happen. But that is also why when people talk hate speech and all that, even our Constitution here in America, it does not protect you when it comes to fighting words. You cannot toss fighting words at people, even on Discord in America, and expect not to have the cops talking to you. That's actual.
Sure, but the
fighting words.
legal definition of fighting words
Let's
changes
get
one
a
to be
lawyer in
treated-
here.
Yeah, wait.
Are we
So
gonna talk Brandenburg
fighting words.
versus
I don't
Ohio?
believe you.
What
I
do
don't
we want to talk?
strings. I don't believe you understand the actual definition of fighting words.
I do. I absolutely do.
For clarification, for clarification, I will cite to you the exact verbiage of what defines a fighting word.
Are we going Brandenburg? Before you do that,
Hold on,
before you
strings.
try to make me sound-
Let him finish. Let him respond, and then you can respond back. I promise you'll be able to respond. I always let you respond, correct? All right, Fab.
Thank you, is that they are defined as, by their very utterance, they inflict injury or tend to incite an immediate breach of the peace. It has been well observed that such utterances are no essential part of any exposition of ideas and are of such slight social value as a step to truth that any benefit that may be derived from them is clearly outweighed by the social interest in order and morality. So someone saying that they have to produce a clear and present danger, which are like, it's like they are threats. Fighting words are threats. They aren't just saying Sky Daddy. Sky Daddy is not a fighting word. That's
So
just not what it is.
what I said was not a fighting word, what you tried to do 3 times were fighting words.
Exactly.
But it's called
And TOS.
incitement. Incitement to
No,
violence.
No. You
Not
can't. You can't say that Ronald Reagan was a douchebag and that's incitement. Like that's not.
No,
those are not
Ronald
fighting words.
Reagan is not a protected creed, color, class, religion, sex, or
that's
any
not-
other thing.
That's not also how
What's the line? That's ridiculous.
Fighting words don't work. That if I say blue and then you get mad at me and punch me in the face, that blue is now a fighting word. That's not
That's
how
not
fighting.
realistic. Give me a real example.
So
Sky
the,
Daddy is
the
not a
concept
fighting
of,
word.
That is a real example.
the
No,
concept
it
of
is.
protected classes doesn't mean that we don't get to talk about religion and whether we think that religion is morally good, bad, whatever the hell we think. That is not how it works. And so if we want to say that your God, in our opinion, is Sky Daddy, that's perfectly okay for us to say. And you cannot say that you're going to punch us in the face for that. That's actually that's what I was trying to say earlier, dude. Like, you are literally just giving us ammunition to continue to say stuff like, yo, maybe you shouldn't have a gun because you seem like a fucking hothead. And I'm just saying, like, I'm just trying to be honest with you, because it's like I honestly think like you're coming at this all wrong to try to
I
like
agree
convince
with
us of anything or try to see it from our side. I don't even think you're attempting to do that. I'm trying to. I've been listening and trying to see it from your side, but I can't.
No, I look at it like this, and so I'll and Prime, correct me if I'm wrong.
Mhm.
I'm going to try to make an analogy here.
Sure.
Let's pretend I was Muslim. Let's pretend that I was a very devout Muslim. No pork. I mean, I'm the dude that walks like hardcore.
We understand. We got
Right.
you.
Now, you insult me publicly about my God. Am I mean, now
You are not justified in attacking
You're
this
not
person.
justified to
Let him
attack someone.
finish. Let him finish. Let him finish.
Oh,
curious
So
to see what.
that is my point. Look, if you look at the news in the world, Earth, where we live at, a lot of people look at the violence, and I'm not saying one religion is right and I'm not condemning that religion in no way. I'm trying to use it as a learning point.
Just because any group of people or anyone acts out in a very violent way because you say something bad about their religion or don't follow their religion doesn't mean that like saying anything about someone's religion is a fighting word. That's not like those two. That's just not how this all works. Just because they're a radical, like they're a radical Islamic terrorist, or they're radical Christians. They're a radical any religion. Period. Any religious group has had
Scientologists.
radical groups of people who have killed other groups of people or other individuals because they didn't respect their religion, didn't follow their religion, or because their religion dictates them to do so in their belief. So this idea of anyone saying anything disparaging about your religion, therefore, is a fighting word, is categorically incorrect.
I'm sorry, Fab. The internet cut out, and when it turned back on, you were talking. I didn't hear like the last 60 seconds. I'm sorry.
Yeah, try it again, Fab. Then we'll go to 3 Glad, and then we'll go to Savitar. I see Savitar wants to say something.
Yeah, so essentially
Yeah, I
it's
do.
that,
Thank you, Prime.
it's that like just because there are groups of people of any religion or various religions who act out in violent ways because someone didn't follow their religion, or because their religious belief calls upon them to, take these violent acts if someone does or says something specific, doesn't mean that someone talking disparagingly about another religion is a fighting word or is an act of fighting word. Just because you act violently as a result of something that someone says doesn't automatically constitute what that person said as fighting word.
I also think, just to add on to that, I think something that I'm kind of maybe sensing in what you're saying, String, sorry, I had to check what your name was. And what you're saying is like something I'm sensing, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're saying, in another country, in X country that's not America, you could get killed for disparaging somebody's country, for somebody's religion. Yeah, but here's the problem with that, and I'm just gonna lay it out really, really flatly for you. We're not in that country. I'm in America, and we're on a platform that allows for pretty free speech. I mean, with the exception of the things that are TOS, which I agree. Okay, but Bezos, please give the Bezos bucks though, please. Give your promise to Prime. But yeah, anyways, but I don't think that that's really a good argument, because like you're essentially comparing countries that I think every single one of us would say are problematic in a lot of ways to our country, which we would also probably say is problematic in a lot of ways. But look, it's different. Those are two very different things. You're comparing apples and oranges.
So go ahead. You respond to that. You can respond.
Yeah, no worries. The only point, so I get your name right, Captain Jones. Yeah. Just don't disparage people. Don't disparage their religion, no matter if they're Christian, Muslim, Jewish, fucking purple anteaters. Don't do it. Don't call them a sky daddy, because the minute that you, let me finish. The minute that you, in a conversation, an argument, a political disagreement, the minute you disparage a person's faith, that's the minute you've lost it. And anger in a person like me, it can boil up. I mean, I was a Marine. I'm sorry you weren't ready to be a Marine yet. You did the Army, ain't ready to be a Marine. I get it. I understand.
Oh, it's not in that. No. I've never even been a captain of a boat. The entirety of my name is a lie. I'm not a captain. I'm not an A. I'm not a Jones.
I was talking about Samantha, not you. But that's the point.
It's okay that you didn't pass the IQ test.
I got a 94 on my ASVAB. What about you? I could talk all day. I flew drones. I got a prop. I mean, if you want to talk intelligence and a big
drone. I was infantry. Sit the fuck down.
Okay, all right. It's great. That's wonderful. I see your hand, Seattle. Hold on. So I said 3 Glad, Savitar, Seattle. Then I go to you, Eagle. Someone, I believe the name's Keyline Platypus, had a good question. Strings, do you think misgendering someone is fighting words?
Can you say miss what?
Misgendering and using the wrong pronouns on someone, would that be fighting words?
It depends on the context. Let me give an example. Comrade Samantha, I'm going to call you out. Let's just be real.
Don't do it.
Don't
misgender, please. Don't do it.
No. I'm going to be very.
All right. He warned you.
I'm not going to offend. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Call me out and call me an asshole.
You want use me as example. Use me as example. Just it'll be quicker.
He made his bed, Prime. Let him lay in it.
Use me as an example. Don't use her, please. Just use me. Go ahead.
Okay. God, then we gotta. Shit.
Just say that, like, okay,
my
so,
God.
like you could just
Now,
misgender
like I was
Prime.
saying about that IQ test.
Just
Okay,
misgender
but
Prime. Just
right,
call like you could just say that Prime
yo,
would be like
I
a.
made something up in my head. The word prime is the most offensive word. It's above the N word, okay? In
okay.
fantasy land here.
Sure.
So if during the conversation, I forget your name, it starts with a C. I read your bio. Right? Starts with a C, I remember.
Oh, Calvin. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Calvin. There we go, man. So assuming calling you prime was like punching you in the mouth, dude. If we're having a serious discussion about, I don't know, race, and I call you prime, dude, I screwed up. No, now on the same token, if we're talking about something other than race, and it's not political, it's not a creed, it's not a color, it's not a religion, it's not, I don't know, it's not a prime case channel because your channel's spicy. You may not want to punch me in the mouth if I call you prime, but during a certain context of a conversation, calling you a given noun, pronoun, subject, verb, adverb, whatever you want to call it, a string, it can be very offensive, and it can get the old blood pressure going. And so, no, I shouldn't do it. And that's
I
why
have
you
no
say
idea what
Skynet.
any of this meant.
Yeah, so I understand what he's kind of getting at here.
So-
So when it comes to protected class, oh, sorry, Prime, did you want to say something?
You know what? Let me go to Three Glad. He's been waiting very patiently. Then we go to Savitar. You'll be right next. Okay. Three Glad.
Okay.
Okay. It seems like your annoyance with them. I guess I'm gonna go back on this. It seems like you're not that they're fighting words, but like they're, to give you credit, they're being like intentionally antagonistic towards you because like you've stated that you like religion, and they're just like, well, fuck you, Sky Daddy, like whatever. But like to say that they're fighting words is like that kind of like, we live in America, and you being someone from the military, I assume you're familiar with like the First Amendment and freedom of speech. So like it's a little disenfranchising to hear you like threaten people over exercising their freedom of speech because you don't like what they said.
I'm just pointing out that our country is the last place on earth, and anywhere else you did it, you would die. But here in America, there's people that fought and died, and we can say what we want. We can piss on a flag, we can kneel on the ground at the anthem, and we still got a job.
You're
Yeah,
right,
we
dude.
shouldn't.
All
we
I'm
shouldn't
No,
saying
threaten
okay, wait.
people for exercising their rights.
You're
That's
touching
all I'm
into
saying.
you're touching into a dozen different things first.
Well, you don't always have a job, but you won't be, persecuted by the
So-
government.
Well,
It was
yeah,
the
not
pun
by
on
not by the
Kaepernick. I
government,
was
but
leaving
like
an opening when I said you still have a job. I was seeing if somebody was going to take the bait. It was a discussion about Kaepernick.
Okay, so let's go to Savitar, Seattle, then Eagle.
So there's a bunch of things to unpack here, but I think the first thing that we can go through is the simple fact that you keep bringing up protected classes. And in the United States, protected classes are only when it comes is from the Civil Rights Act. It's talking about businesses and whom they can and cannot discriminate against. Yes, religion is part of that. If you want a spicy take, I kind of believe that religion ought not be a protected class, but we can get into that later on. Obviously, as everyone stated multiple times, us shitting on religion is not fighting words. You have a bunch of like anti-theist or atheist people like throughout time that have like shat on religion in the United States, and it was never considered fighting words, even though they were like oppressed in the United States for a large portion of the United States' history. Furthermore, the United States is not the only place where you can like really speak. Sure, not every single country in the world has quote unquote freedom of speech enshrined into their constitutions, but you can in fact say like have public religious discussions and or just shit on religion within many countries in Europe, for example, or in Japan, for example. However, certain countries like, Saudi Arabia, I could not expound my atheistic views without being either imprisoned or killed outright. So I like the idea that in the United States, I am allowed to freely say my opinion and why I believe that religion is like bad or whatever. But going back to just an example here, I think we ought be allowed to express, just as like a Christian ought be allowed to express, hey, my holy book says XYZ, that's why you're not allowed to be gay. I should also be able to say, hey, your God murdered children in your own holy book, therefore he's an asshole.
Okay. So we'll go to Eagle. Sorry, we'll Seattle Eagle. And then Sam. Sorry, Salty Sam, and then Friday Living. All right.
All right. So, Strings. Give me your hot take. Why was the Charlie Hebdo attack justified? Because that's what you're saying.
No, I'm not. I'm playing devil's advocate. Charlie Hebdo and all that BS,
Okay.
it was absolutely not justified. I should absolutely be able to say, Sky Daddy, fuck him with a purple pig. Sorry if I
Okay,
cursed.
so you've
Prime.
violated TOS for a meme, basically.
What?
What? Sorry, what?
You're threatening violence in this channel for a meme if
No, I'm
you're
making-
if you're not connecting the points here.
In his defense, I don't think he
am
knew it was
connecting
TOS.
points. The point that I was making, Carl, is that
yes,
I love this country more than I cared to explain to you. I tear up at events because I've been in places where saying Sky Daddy gets a hacksaw to your neck. They put it, they take your head and they put it on a pike. They may burn you in a cage. They may enslave you and force you to make shoes for.
Whoa! None of this
nickel and
happens
penny.
over there. What the fuck?
Let me finish. I'm playing devil's advocate because you notice you're smart. I flipped several positions tonight. The whole point I'm making is that is as systemically screwed up as this country is, when all we do is disparage it and tear it apart, where else we gonna go? If not America?
Canada.
Canada? Really?
You're not gonna be brutally murdered for shitting on religion in Canada.
Are you sure? Because I can go on Google and prove you wrong, and I'll bet you. a
Yeah,
win.
sure. Prove me wrong. Show me where like the government legally allows somebody to be like brutally murdered for shitting on
right.
religion.
Charlie
you
Hebdo attack
just-
was not legal.
Correct. You just like flipped your conversation. Of course, I'm not gonna.
No, it's consistent.
That's
I mean, we can
entirely
go to New Zealand. If you want to talk about like violence against a protected class, look at what they did to.
Why are we
the,
moving to New Zealand now?
Wait, why are we moving to New Zealand? And if you're just gonna bring up that like radical people are gonna do terroristic if you're just gonna bring up like radical people do terroristic things, I'm just gonna bring you up the entire history of the United States on how atheists, different religious groups, even other versions of Christians were heavily discriminated against and killed outright, genocided en masse. Native Americans are a great example of this. How they were genocided en masse within this country.
I would not disagree with you for a second, and I would say that that is our past. There are wrongs in this country. Look at Prime. He's a black man. Odds are Prime.
No way. He's black?
No, let me finish. Shut the fuck up. Let me finish. Odds are Prime, and I'm saying odds because I don't know, but odds are that man that you're looking at right now, his relatives were beaten, whipped, chained, and god awful things happen. But we don't talk about that uncomfortableness if it suits the narrative. And the point I'm making is that if not America, where are you gonna go? Don't tear this country apart. Unite us under a common cause, like Maddie Cakes. I think we made progress tonight. I think, holy shit, I should spend 10 cents out of my taxpayer dollars to fund an 811 system so that when I don't want to go bust a cap with government assistance in somebody's ass because I think they're breaking the law, then maybe I'll get a social worker. But at least I have the choice as a human to say danger or no danger. It's not on a social worker to make that call. So I agree that, hell, man, our country is very screwed up. But
Can I ask one question, Strings? One quick question. Where were you about on January 6th?
Where was I? I was in Fort Mill, South Carolina.
Just
in
checking.
Indian
Just
land.
checking. We're good.
Yep. Sure enough. Now, fuck you. Right? Here's one.
Why?
Do you see that? Do you see my tattoo?
Oh, you're special.
Don't you ever throw
special.
those words at me. Please. It's not okay. It's
Are they fighting
offensive.
words? Are they
It's like
fighting words?
calling
Yeah.
it's like calling a Jewish person a Nazi.
Oh boy.
Don't do it. It's
Okay.
not okay.
That's oh boy.
I thought we were going
As a
somewhere
person
completely
with
different
German
with that one.
ancestry, I mean, no, it's not.
Okay.
No, it is. If you're,
Yeah.
if you're going to say that because I'm conservative, that you think I'm some crazy asshole taking over the Capitol,
No,
that's wrong.
no, it's not because
Yeah,
you're.
one of these is an immutable
Hold on.
characteristic.
It's not because
That was offensive, I have to say.
I don't think that necessarily
Hold on.
Judaism is
Hold
an
on.
immutable
Hold on.
characteristic.
It's not because you're conservative.
Well,
that
it's a
you're
heritage.
crazy asshole. It's because
It's
you're
a
a crazy
religion as
asshole.
well.
I think you're a crazy asshole.
When you want to put boxing gloves on, come to my house. Hit me
No,
up in Discord.
stop.
I'll
Stop
give you
saying
my
that.
So-
Stop saying
no,
All
that.
right,
Stop
bringing,
saying that.
bringing the conversation back before you get like Prime in trouble here. Let's not ever do that, please.
Sorry, Prime.
Prime,
Well,
please.
so I was.
Furthermore,
Okay.
furthermore, yes, you probably shouldn't call him a terrorist or a terrorist sympathizer. He hasn't said anything to go around that lines. I understand the line that you were kind of going there, but come on, low blow. Furthermore, let's continue here on to something. I think. Do you guys want to continue talking about this? I think he's just playing devil's advocate and not actually like fighting for the
Meaning-
position that shitting on religion ought not be allowed in the United States. He's entirely in favor of it being allowed. He's just explaining that in many places around the world this wouldn't be allowed. However, I could again name many places around the world, such as again Europe, Canada, many East Asian countries.
I don't care about those other places. I live in America.
Yes, and so he's not saying that you can't criticize it. He's just saying, yeah, I don't agree with what he's saying at all. Because again, like he has a very
Well, he kind of was saying you can't criticize it because he's saying if you criticize it, those are fighting
He
words.
literally acknowledged criticism.
And see, he's agreeing with me. What the fuck?
He's agreeing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
never mind.
he's totally okay with violence because you said something that kind of hurt his feelings.
all right,
y'all.
so yeah. So my question would be: would you understand that there's a difference between me saying "fuck your religion" versus "fuck you personally for your religious beliefs"? Would you find a distinction between those two statements?
That's a good retort. I don't know. Me personally versus my religion, I would think that I would agree with you. There's a separation.
So can you understand where there's certain people that are saying like "fuck the institution of Christianity" that wouldn't necessarily say "fuck you" for your belief in Christianity?
But Comrade Samantha looked me in my eyeball and slapped me in my face. I don't take lightly to that.
I'm not. Listen, I'm not her. I am asking you a very simple question.
I agree with you. There's a split. Your religion as a whole versus your personal connection to that religion, there's a definite fork in the road. And if I want to
Because-
criticize your religion as a whole, I should absolutely. I'm in America. That's how it is. But if I want to personally attack you for your religion, then I'm wrong. However you want to say it. I mean, that person coming at me and saying Sky Daddy in the context of what they said, they might as well have slapped me in the public square.
So-
and where I come from,
Oh
that's
no.
fighting.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Where you come from is America, and America, that is not a fighting word. Can we please stop
In South
spreading?
Carolina, it is. Do you
No,
want
it's
to talk
not.
about
Oh,
it?
man.
It is.
No, and
Okay,
then
all right.
the-
Also, and
Supreme
also,
Court has
and
said
also,
that
can
it's
you
not.
understand? Hold on, Fab. You also understand that Samantha saying that she can stomp on the American flag. She can say "fuck you." She can say "fuck your religion." She can say "fuck you" for being a Christian, and that is well within her First Amendment rights. And if you do anything to the contrary against her, you are in the wrong. You understand that, correct?
Here's the
legally.
flip. You have freedom of speech, but you do not have freedom of consequences for your speech.
That's not how
Most
it's
people-
Those consequences
Hold
have
on.
consequences.
Hold on.
Fab,
Let
I'm
him.
not understanding why that doesn't fall within the definition that you gave, like for fighting
It's
words.
not. It
because
isn't.
I can show you ordinances in my hometown
Oh my god.
that if I disparage you publicly and you were to punch me in my mouth, while we would both go to jail, in a jury, the person who punched me in my mouth is probably going to get it tossed. Whereas I, who got punched in the mouth and also fought, will be convicted.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
why?
Actually-
No.
I
That's
started
different.
the fight.
No, that's
So that's
different.
just wrong.
That
That's
have,
actually
What you're explaining
that
is
have mutual
different. No,
combat.
yeah, what you're
You can
no,
challenge
what
the
you're
person to a mutual combat, and that's a legal
no,
thing.
that's not, no, what he said is he punched someone punched him in the face, then he punched them back. That has nothing to do with fighting words. There's nothing.
No.
Word
It
is not a
happened
punch.
because of fighting words. It would be like me approaching Prime and calling him a very unsavory word. If that man were to punch me in my face for saying that word to him, and we go to jury trial, guess what? We both now been arrested for misdemeanor assault. I
Okay,
promise
Fab,
you.
give the
Let me
definition
finish.
again, please, because it
Oh,
to me,
let
it
me
makes-
finish.
I'll just
please.
link it for you. I'll just link it for you, Tom.
Okay.
I'm going to break
I'm
it
out.
down like this.
Peace.
In my court case, as the aggressor, even though we both punched, if I call him an unsavory word, I'm going to stay in jail. That's how it should work. If he defended himself, he may get some community service, but I called him a word that is so violent and vile that it deserved being punched in the mouth for it. Thus, the fighting words exception and SCOTUS. So please litigate.
But insulting your religion is not calling you like, it's not on the same level as like hate speech.
Not
Some people it is.
I
know it can
some
be.
people it is. No,
That's
it's,
why-
to some
that's
people
why-
it is.
that's
To
why-
some people it is. They will cut your head off. Look at the
Well,
news.
In America?
In
Well,
America,
yeah,
they
what I'm
will
saying
kill.
is-
I can tell you about honor killings. Do you want to know about honor killings in America? They will
Yeah, those
cut your head off if you disparage a religion. Don't
Yeah,
tell me I'm wrong.
Oh yeah, those definitely exist, and those people
Yeah, I'd like
ought to be arrested and dealt with.
So,
Oh, yeah,
so
I-
the
I'd
other
like to
people,
hear about
sorry,
this
hold on,
honor
one second,
killings in
one second. The
America,
other people who've been waiting, so we got to move along. Salty Sands are waiting, and Friday is waiting, and now also Strawberry. So Salty Sam.
Yeah, so just a few things. So you were talking about attacking someone's religion being fighting words, and even just very recently, you mentioned when Samantha was kind of disparaging your service to some extent, you said, "Oh, don't ever throw those words at me," and I think you would probably agree that you would define those as fighting words as well. So then why, when you made the comment about Samantha's service, before she had made any comments directly at you, I believe you said specifically something regarding, I guess, essentially to the effect of, I guess you weren't ready to be a Marine. It
It's
was
called
something to that
inter-service
effect.
rivalry. It was not a direct personal jab, but any vet in the room can tell you that if you are not in my branch, you are not worthy of my branch. If I am an Air Force airman and I'm in a room full of Marines, I'm sorry, you're the dumbest rocks in the room. If I'm a Navy sailor, I'm sorry, you're too stupid to stay on land. If I'm it's
so you
inter-service
wouldn't-
rivalry. It was not a personal jab.
So you wouldn't define, well, first of all, I think most people would probably agree that even if maybe it wasn't intended as a personal jab, I think most people would
Most
agree
people,
that
it was
it's
not
probably
intended
going
at,
to.
and it's not for your ears. It was for Samantha's ears and any vet in the room and anybody outside of the joke. They don't get it, and it's not your business to know until you have taken an oath under our code to support, defend, blah, blah, blah. You won't get it. And that's no offense if you have not served, if you couldn't serve, if you refuse to serve. I'm not classing you out, but I'm just telling you it's a joke. You just don't get it if you don't get it. No offense.
So you wouldn't define those as fighting words then?
No, inter-service rivalry? No. I mean, we may go out in the backyard and like knock each other out drunk, but that's not a reason to like invoke the fighting words defense. I mean, it's inter-service rivalry. And I'm sorry, the Marine Corps, born 10 November 1775 in Tun Tavern, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, we're the better service. Suck
Okay,
it.
that's interesting. But then my other point that I wanted to say is, so you agree that like in America, we obviously have the First Amendment, so these wouldn't really be defined as fighting words. How we were bringing up the definition, and if that's the case, then why would we even talk about this if it's not something that we even want to consider moving towards in America?
Because I blame a communist. There's a woman by the name of Sarah Inamoroto. She's out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, matter of fact. I had to go up against the Allegheny District Attorney. Now, I outplayed them in their game because fighting words and true threat, I mean, come on, lawyers matter. But the point is that there are certain ways to invoke words in America. And unless you're a lawyer, I mean, I'm just telling you personal experiences, words matter. And your freedom of speech does not free you from freedom of consequence. Look at America circa 2021 on Twitter. Look at the cancel culture. Right now, what do we got? Dr. Seuss? Wait a minute, wait now. We got
Dr.
no,
Seuss
let me
is not being
finish.
canceled.
We got
Would you
Dumbo.
agree
No, I'm not
that
done.
fighting over
Right?
over a
So
criticism
with
of
the
religion
way
Let
isn't
him
an
finish.
appropriate
Let him
conflict?
finish. This is gonna be good. Let him finish.
with the way that the political pendulum swings in this country, at some point, all this cancel comes back to haunt. And so my point is that I'm using a very leftist phrase as I see it reading the news sources I read.
Okay, so I'll see you can respond, and then we'll move on to Friday living in Strawberry.
Actually, can you just move on?
Talking about
I'm waiting
fighting
for the next
words,
panel. I mean, the next topic.
The obvious implication is that the consequence, if we're talking about a consequence, is going to be a fight. But I think everyone would agree, and I'm almost positive that, well, I am positive that the American law agrees that fighting is not an appropriate response to someone insulting your religion.
I would disagree. Read our Declaration of Independence from Great Britain.
So you think that if someone went to court after getting into a physical alteration with someone after that person said, "Oh, I don't believe in your sky daddy," you think that they have any chance of actually winning that case? Any reasonable chance, not barring like the most exceptional lawyer and the other side having like just a useless one?
My point is that it's like Romeo and Juliet. Both parties have sinned. Both parties threw a punch at the gas station, depending on your version of the film, right? So if you started a fight, or if during the course of your words, our back and forths, you brought up something that was so egregious, so harmful, so sinful to the human soul that it offends the common conscience, then a regular person is going to give a break to the person who is the lesser evil in the story. And so if I'm a Muslim and you're a Jew and you say that blah, 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 and then you punch me in my mouth, or through the fight, you say blah, blah, blah.
Okay. So
You have committed.
I'm sorry. No, stop. I just really want to move on from this.
I have one
like,
final
so
point.
hold on. Stop, please. Thanks. Strawberry, you want to say something? I just really want to move on to whatever the fuck else. This is too much.
Yeah, just from what I hear of the conversation, like I don't think anyone disagrees that there are certain fighting words. Like if you're out with your wife and someone walks up and insults your wife, I don't think anyone would be worried about if it was legal or not. It's because you insulted something that was dear to me and that I actually care about. So whether it's religion, your someone's wife, someone's race, calling someone the N-word, there are certain words that are fighting words. I don't see how this is a debate. Is it right? Is it the proper response? Is it legal? No. But if someone walks up and insults you in the right way, says the right thing,
He was talking about legalistically when he brought up when Fab was arguing about fighting words. It's because legalistically, that's what we're talking about. Legal.
Yeah.
Not.
Well, we're
Yes.
talking about the legal.
You
Yeah,
can say that.
like
Yes, you
fighting
can.
words are and Strings is bringing up like this idea of like if someone says fighting words to you and then you punch them, that you are in the right, which is incorrect. Even like the Supreme Court has said that, like, well, no, the Supreme Court has even said that like saying like you are a white son of a bitch, I'll kill you is not a fighting word. It's not a fighting phrase. Even that something that you would think is so offensive, or a whole litany of things that the Supreme Court has
Okay,
said
but
are not fighting words.
Yeah, but I think the point that he was trying to make is that you have the right to ask for a jury trial. The reason you have for a jury trial is to bring your case in front of the population of your peers.
That's not a legal. That's just
Yes,
like
hold on,
that's how courts work. It's not that like fighting words is like some sort of legal defense that you have. Like a lawyer can make a Chewbacca defense. It doesn't matter. They can make whatever argument they want to persuade a jury, but that's not making those words fighting words as the legal definition of what they are. A lawyer can spout whatever nonsense they want to convince a jury. That doesn't make it fighting words.
But it's not nonsense. The reason we have a jury in the United States is because you can't just take the law just black and white. You have a jury of your peers. If we don't want your peers, we would just have a judge decide. You bring this case in front of your peers and say, hey, this man walked up and assaulted my wife. And those 12 jurors say, you know what? If someone walked up and assaulted my wife, I would have done the same thing. So then those jurors say, not guilty. That's how it legally works. That's the point. That's why you have a jury.
There's a couple more steps to it than that. but-
Yeah, that
I
was
mean, that's the
point,
basic-
but okay.
That's the principle behind it.
It isn't, but okay.
All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed me shilling for cash. That's always fun. Back at it. What do you guys want to talk about? Literally anything. I don't know. I don't care.
All right. Prime, have you seen the movie Greenland?
No.
There's a scene at the very end of the movie where they open up the vault doors.
Okay.
And they walk out, and it's a fresh new world.
Okay.
That's what this feels like.
Oh, like on the other side of me shilling?
We've been locked inside a vault for so long. We're finally free. We don't know what to do.
Let's talk about
We don't
genetic
know where to
modification
start.
let's talk about genetic modification of human beings and why it ought to happen.
Okay, sure. We're talking about gene editing. Fine, great.
Does anybody disagree
Strings,
that?
Strings, do you find anything morally reprehensible about genetically modifying human beings?
Why? Why? Of all
All right,
some-
wait for it. Hold on. Are we talking fucking China? Are we talking
what?
They actually
Hold on,
arrested
Uyghurs?
somebody for that.
What are we talking about? Because if we want to talk about it, I'll get.
We're
China,
talking
and
CRISPR.
We'll talk about. Wait for a minute. You want to talk? Oh man, dude, perfect opening. Right now, on Earth, circa 2021. Z, I'm gonna tell you, buddy. Come at me, baby. But here we go. So in China,
Eagle,
right
I hate you so
there
much.
are over a
Oh, we
million.
were talking about the X-Men.
There are over 1 million people in a concentration camp, yet nobody has the balls to do anything about it. How sad are we as a people that we allow that?
Be the Uyghurs?
I guess we're just trying to talk about the Uyghurs thing
China?
instead. So if you want to
No,
talk about
what?
the Uyghurs thing, while
We're
I
talking about genetically modifying
talking
human beings. I
about-
swear to God, I thought we were going with like a
Wait,
comic book.
You want to talk about China? That's their anal swab.
No.
We didn't say anything
That's
about
your
China.
China
Why?
This
doesn't.
has
China
nothing to do with
actually
China.
arrested somebody for genetically modifying children.
Right.
So
And
they're
look
not
at what
okay with
China-
that.
Look at what China is doing right now with genetics and DNA. Right now, if you go to China and you're not special, you get a Q-tip up your butthole. And what they do with that Q-tip that went up your butthole, they put it in a database and they track your DNA. Right?
I think you
So-
can get your DNA
There's
from
a
like
lot of
spit or
other
something,
ways to get
or your
DNA. That's a
fingerprint,
lot easier than that.
or
But
your
it's
you don't
pretty
go
surveillance
with the
easy.
system.
butt. I don't think
It's
it's
pretty
go with the
easy
butt,
when you
man.
have a Q-tip up your butthole.
But it's
To put
not.
a
But hey,
person-
it's not
Oh,
as
come
fun.
on
It's
now.
not as
Like
fun that way.
hair.
Come on.
What was the original question? I'm sorry. Jesus Christ.
No, no.
I had to go there.
The original
got lost
question
in
was,
a lot
what
of
do
like,
you?
People like adding like robot parts to people.
No, that's
no.
robot. That
Change
that's
I
their-
did. I
Did-
thought we were going with X-Men.
Or
strings,
X-Men.
strings. Did you get lost in the butthole? Is that what you just
Oh my
forgot?
God.
Where
He
you
just
were?
wanted to talk about Q-tips and buttholes. That's all. He was just trying to lead it there one way or the other. He needed it to end up with Q-tips in the butthole.
Okay, and he got us there, damn it, because he's a man who doesn't give up, right? When he's got a goal in mind, right? He doesn't let anything stop him. He wants to talk about Q-tips and buttholes. That's exactly what he's going to fucking do.
Look, he's an
right,
ass man.
Ollie.
He's an ass man, Prime. Don't you shame him for that.
I hate
Baby,
what you do.
That's Mr. Bottom.
He just called you a fucking bottom.
Wait, me or Prime?
Prime.
No, I'm calling myself.
Oh.
Trying to shut this
Okay.
down. Let's shut down the band.
So,
Okay, can we start back over with the topic? and, like,
Eagle, I put a
read it
marker
so
in for
everybody
this. Please
understands?
don't miss it, okay? I put a marker for just this.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, believe me, I'm not missing this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that we will eventually. Well, we kind of like started to touch the tip of it. I think that we will get into genetic
This is the
modification
headline of the
humans.
video, dude.
But I think the danger, and I see the same thing happening with the modification of humans, the same thing that's happened with our food. Like we'll see these short-term gains, and we'll start making modifications that will be unreversible, and we won't know the long-term effects that will have on humanity years from now. So I think we should stay out of it.
What specific genetic modifications of food do you find problematic?
The tons of pesticide genes.
Anti-pesticide. So the anti-pesticide genes are developed in like. Are you just talking about them developing it through natural selection? Because I don't think we select for those. There's like no genetically modified food that I know of that purposely selects for anti-pesticides.
They do graft. They graft anti-pesticide genetic chains into our food, which allows them to then spray Roundup on it, and the Roundup will then only kill the pesticides and not actually kill the plants.
Oh wait, yeah, I thought you were saying something else. Yeah, I don't see an issue with that. That's a resistance to a poison. Why not be like resistant to poisons?
Because
not
now
just not be
now
poisoned?
all of our soils are completely doused in that Roundup, and without those specific genetically modified plants, we can't grow organic regular food.
Do you know what organic means in the United States and how it's absolutely worthless? Oh, I
I
think
meant
this,
like
this is a rabbit hole. This is a rabbit hole. So while there may be side effects that would be that could be possibly detrimental to human genetic modification, I think that the basic stuff of getting rid of all genetic diseases, deformities, disabilities would like there are very few arguments that are good that can go against these things.
And what I'm saying is that same train of thought is what started us to modifying our food. And what we're seeing now is after years and years of modifying our food, the weeds and insects are starting to become immune to the Roundup and the pesticides. So now we're having
Sure. So what would be the weeds or soil or whatever that would be resistant to like what would be the unintended consequence of solving progeria, for example, which is a very rare genetic disorder which like has horrible effects on the person in question. Like what would be the harmful side effects of this? This seems just like an argument from ignorance.
I'm saying we won't. That's what I'm saying. We won't know the long term effects when we start go in and start messing with our DNA. That's my whole point. We'll see this short term. Okay, we'll start messing with this because this one thing will fix this thing, but we don't know 10 years down the line what that change will actually do. And once that change has been spread to our population, we can't just get rid of it. That's what I'm saying.
We could definitely get rid of it. I just don't know where you're like. Just seems like yeah, be cautious, but there's like a sprinkling of argument from ignorance here. So sure, I guess there might be some issues with modifying down the line, but we could just deal with them.
And my claim is that we won't be able to deal with them. That's what I'm saying.
Can you prove that?
Can you prove that we will be able to deal with them? Like, I mean,
yeah, we've been like there was a tons of testing when it comes to GMOs and stuff like that, and there were definitely many problems with GMOs, and we've been dealing with many of the problems that various GMOs have had, like allergies. At times, this was a concern, and like the various corporations that made GMOs dealt with the allergies that people could potentially have with them. Genetic modification, like animals, is another thing. We've been genetically modifying animals and plants throughout all human history. Not with like CRISPRs or anything like that. Usually just through breeding programs and stuff like that. But generally speaking, these things benefit wider society, and we've been able to deal with any of the negative aspects of just genetically modifying people, or not people, but animals and plants. I don't see why we can't do the same thing with people.
Let's go to Friday, and then I'm guessing Kobe. Oh, sorry, Salty. I didn't see your hand there, so we'll go to Salt Friday, Salty, and then Kobe. I'm guessing he's ready to jump into it.
I think one possible solution to solve these worries we have and kind of work off the mistakes that we did with plants is to be able to simulate the mechanisms of the body on computers and things like that, so we can test certain things in a virtual environment instead of possibly cutting some gene we don't know nothing about and causing something even worse within the person. I mean, I could see with CRISPR where they're trying to do that with I think they did that with twins in China with AIDS and also with cancer and things. I could see that's more beneficial though, but maybe if we focus on understanding more of the mechanisms and being able to simulate it, it would help us.
Sure, testing is something we need to do. I agree.
Agree. Let's go to Salty Sam, then our buddy Kobe.
Yeah, so I guess the first question I had is kind of regarding just the presence of long-term effects in general. So I don't know about regarding the field as a whole, but I know specifically regarding, for example, vaccines, and it seems like this would be the case with a lot of other things. A lot of the times there doesn't seem to be significantly severe long-term effects showing up like in the long term. They can be delayed by like a few weeks, sometimes a few months, even up to like a year. But talking like particularly long term, it doesn't seem to be the case that this is something that really happens, barring for example with radiation. So unless some mechanism of action could be shown similar to kind of radiation with this, it doesn't seem like we would have to worry too much about like severe effects cropping up in the significantly long term. So it would seem like we're mostly going to be battling with the struggles that are immediately going to arise from this.
But where are the control cases? Because if
We have none.
once you release the vaccine, and after a year or two, it seems like everything's good, and then everyone gets it, 20 years down the line, you have no control case. So any new diseases, any new ailments that pop up in the general population that you attribute it to a random occurrence or just something new that's occurring, you have no control to compare it to.
Has this
Wait.
never been done with vaccines?
Well, yeah. So we do have controls.
Yeah.
There are some people that can't take vaccines because they have autoimmune disorders. So we have those people as controls. And then beyond that, if you really needed to have let's say that we're like the COVID vaccine that's happened, right? This vaccine that people are taking across the globe. Let's say that it had some bad effects. Well, there would be control groups. There are places around the world that don't have access to the vaccine. Many African countries are not going to have access to the vaccine until mid 2022. So I mean, there's going to be a lot of places, a lot of communities that we could look at. If it does turn out that a bunch of like really rural communities in Somalia are just doing perfect, but like a bunch of people in Chicago are all getting the Black Plague, then we would know. Could I take my turn, because like it was my time? Yeah. So like in general, like it is, I think like long-term effects are like, it's reasonable to be like worried about them, but this is just not something that seems to be like a problem with either vaccines or GMOs. And while we haven't done a lot of CRISPR stuff, it just seems pretty intuitive that the same would be true there, right? So for example, like topsoil. It's actually like a lot of our problems with topsoil come from the fact that we grow a lot of plants that are like extraordinarily damaging on the soil. Stuff like cotton, stuff like tobacco, stuff like heroin and heroin poppies. These are incredibly water hungry plants. With GMOs, we can make plants less water hungry. We can make it so plants grow quicker. So we have to use less actual time in the soil. We can do things, right? There's a reason that we know humanity no longer suffers cyclical famines. It used to be until like 100 years ago that places like Algeria, places like Southeast Asia would just every 10 to 15 years, they would have these mass, like 10% of the population die because they just wouldn't have enough food. But that's just not the case anymore because we're able to have genetically modified plants, right? It seems that modifying the genetics of like the world around us is just the next step in human scientific evolution, right? It seems pretty obvious. And then finally, just to address like the idea of like more generally of what is it called, like CRISPR? So many of the problems that people have could be very easily fixed in utero. The further we go back in the development of a fetus, the more simple an organism we're dealing with, and the less things we have to actually tweak. My nephew has Down syndrome, and part of what he has is people with Down syndrome have an incredibly bad problem with heart disorders. He was born with what is it called when you have a hole in your heart? Is that a heart palpitation?
It's called a hole in your heart.
Anyway, yeah. Anyways, he was born with a hole in his heart, and he had to have a heart surgery. Within the first like 2 weeks of him, he's fine. He's like 2 or 3 now. He's fine. But they would have been able to fix that they would have been able to stop that even happening. If wide scale adoption of CRISPR. So yeah, I don't know. It seems as if this is just sort of the next evolution of science. It seems that every time that we have a new scientific field, I mean, people were worried, about like people not having morality anymore after genetic relativity because they felt that it like destroyed like a universalist view of the world. But we obviously like that's not, you know, that doesn't happen. But yeah, I mean, these are reasonable worries, but I think that we think the reason I jumped in the call is I feel like we're getting a little bit too close into like sensationalism.
Go ahead, Fab.
I think my issue with you know, the things like CRISPR and sort of that idea is that, and when people are like, well, we have GMOs and we have vaccines and we have all these other genetically modified whatevers in our life, and it has actually had positives in our life, doesn't have any like actual negative effects. That the difference between those two is when you eat genetically modified food or when you take a vaccine, it's not modifying your DNA, and that is what is different. And so that's why my issue is when people bring in like talks about GMOs or talks about using vaccines, when they're talking about CRISPR or when they're talking about, you know, genetic editing the human genome, is that those are two completely different topics, because our effects that we observe when it comes to GMOs and vaccines have no relation to what will happen or what does happen when we edit our genes in utero or what have you. Those are two completely different topics, and I just really want to like push back on trying to like meld them together as if they have some relation. The way in which we go about, you know, editing the genes may be the same thing, but their effects and what that means and how those relate to our health is not the same. And me personally, when it comes to CRISPR and all that, is I don't know in terms of like the moral implications of it. I think it's very, very complicated. Although I do very much think it's a good thing to try and mitigate harm that people experience because of genetic disorders. My worry then is, and this is coming from a place of total ignorance on the topic of genetics, is I at least of the little bit of knowledge I do have, I know that genetics aren't simple, aren't very simple, and so I don't think we're going to see some mass use of, you know, something like CRISPR in a decade or two or even 3. I personally don't think that that's something that's going to happen because it's so complicated. It's going to take us it's going to take us a lot amount of time and a lot amount of resources to be able to really figure out how to safely do this without causing harm that we don't know will happen, because it's sort of like it's like Jenga on steroids is what genetics is. You pull one piece out and you don't know, and we don't know what that genetic bit can do elsewhere until we pull it out, and then we see what happens. And so that's my issue with it, is it's going to take a lot of time before we get to that point. And until we do, I'm definitely not going to sign on to have my child genetically modified. Until
These issues just seem that you guys
I think that's a really reasonable like worry. The way that I look at scientific progress, when I was in middle school, we used to play this thing called the game, where people would go up to you and they would be like, "Hey, you lost the game," and then you were immediately in it, right? The minute you learn about it, you are already in part of the system, right? Once scientific development happens one place, and especially the more globalized our society begins, it's just going to start taking place all over the place, right? It just like, you know, you can see this with like the invention of chariots in Mesopotamia, immediately spread throughout all of Europe, North Africa, and some places in the Asiatic steppe, because it was just like, it's just obvious, right? So CRISPR already exists. It's already I think that like, while your reservations and your timeline is probably correct, I do think that we have to have these conversations now, because I'd much rather kind of have like, for example, legislation about this stuff being passed now than it jump us unexpectedly, and we have rich people being able to have like super children that just outcompete everybody else. You know what I mean? That's what I'm worried about, is this being only available to the ultra rich and not available to the masses of people that are suffering from real illnesses and things.
I think it also brings up a good moral question, you know, whether the things you want to cut out genetically from the baby, like, is it things that you're calling bad or good and things like that? What are you going to, like, we all know that maybe you look at Down syndrome as a bad thing, but do you want to cut out autism? Is that a bad thing for children to have? Is this that, you know?
I actually think that this is like a little bit easier to have a question to answer than it maybe seems on its face. So I think, at least to me, maybe, I think we can make a differentiation pretty easily between like traits, illnesses, genetic behaviors, etc., that make the generic operation of existence, irregardless of any kind of context, difficult. The example I'd make is like blindness. Not having one of your most vital senses is just a disability. I don't think you can make any kind of argument being like, well, you know, is it really bad? Is it just our subjectivity? That's what CRISPR is going to be focused on. I don't think that's going to be focused on, you know, making it so there's no more people with blonde hair or whatever, right?
Go ahead, Salty Sam.
Yeah, so I think you kind of touched on it with that comment, but I think with CRISPR, the main conversation, besides the conversation of people's concerns with whether it's safe or not, is a conversation on what exactly we should be editing using this. Because obviously, like, once you open up the ability to edit your genes, you can essentially do pretty much anything. And I think before this would be implemented, we really need to talk about what is acceptable to edit. For example, should you be allowed to prevent your child from having autism? Should you be allowed to make sure that your child doesn't have has a certain threshold IQ? Should you be allowed to select for? We need to talk about what we should be allowed to select for with this.
This is something I wonder. You phrased it pretty interestingly. Should a parent be allowed to decide their kid not to have autism? Let me rephrase this a little bit. Do you think a parent should be allowed to get an abortion if the only reason they're aborting the baby is they find out that it has autism? It's the only reason. They would have had this baby to term. They're going to get pregnant right again. They're just aborting the baby purely because of autism. Do you think that's an immoral action?
Well, the problem with that is also
they had to do that
because
with Down syndrome too. People do that.
it actually changes whether or not you would be able to successfully raise the child as well. Because obviously,
why not just give it up to
child generally is going.
Saboteur.
So what if okay, so let's just change the hypothetical. Let's say we can guarantee that the country in question here has a proper social infrastructure to take care of this child if the parents don't want him or are unqualified to take care of the kid. So the kid's going to have a good life, even though they have autism or whatever. And the woman still, you know what? I don't want an autistic baby. Vacuum.
I would say that's 100% immoral personally, because how I'm viewing this is they wouldn't have an abortion if the child wasn't autistic. The child is autistic, and the child, if they don't want to care for it, is going to be able to be cared for completely. I would say that seems to be obviously bad to me, but maybe that.
Yeah, I guess
maybe
what I
not
wonder
everyone
is
agrees.
why ought we force a woman to carry, or not a woman, men can be pregnant. Why should we ought to force an individual to carry an infant, which is a very bodily damaging process, if they don't want?
Because you said it yourself, they would carry the baby. If
Yeah, but they decided to not want it anymore. In my opinion, that's the hinge. I don't really actually care why they don't want it. They don't know this. The individual no longer wants it. They don't, and then therefore it's moral. The only thing that requires a morality for abortion is the individual that's pregnant to want to have the abortion. As long as that is clicked,
I don't necessarily agree with that. I would say
that seems really sketchy to me. I'm not sure I could agree with that.
What are some other examples you think that would be an immoral abortion under my definition?
I think that's pretty much one of the only abortions I would say, I would firmly stand on probably being.
Oh, so aborting my child because they have Down syndrome is okay then?
Well, no. Yeah. So obviously, you would apply this down to other disabilities, but barring them deciding on it specifically because of a disability, I don't think that I could reason up a strong enough case.
So somebody actually hit the nail on the head perfectly. Himself in chat said this argument is really close to eugenics. The reason I actually bring this up is because I'm trying to show that, as much as fucked up as it sounds, deciding who lives and who dies based off of their genes is actually not that insane of an idea. That's why I bring up the autism or Down syndrome, and we can bring it even more extreme. There's a illness that I can't think of the last name. That you can go on YouTube, and if you go to the fantastic YouTube channel. I think it's called Special Books for Special Kids. It's a YouTube channel where they do interviews with kids with just different kinds of disabilities, and they allow them to kind of talk about themselves. It's a fantastic YouTube channel. The most viewed YouTube video is of a 15-year-old boy that has a illness that means that he was born with a genetic disorder that makes it so that his skin does not have the enzyme that keeps it together. So if you pull on his skin comes off. The first thing that happened to him when he was born is the nurse grabbed him by the hand to pull him out of the mother, and he was degloved. The skin of his hand was pulled off. Do you think it's immoral if a parent finds out their kid is going to have this illness to decide to abort the child? Just the only reason is they don't want their kid to have that illness. And it's the same society. It's a society where we have perfect social democracy. The kid will be taken care of perfectly, but he has to have this beyond torturous existence. I think it's completely irrational.
If I would draw, I'm not sure if I would draw a distinction between physical disabilities or mental disabilities. I'd have to think about that more. But
I'm sorry,
that
I
would
gotta-
maybe make a difference for me.
I gotta head out. I came to talk about Q-tips and buttholes, and if that's not the topic, then I gotta go.
Have
I
a good one,
appreciate it,
Tom.
guys. Y'all have a good night.
Hold on, before you go, Tom, show your thing for everyone else tomorrow.
Oh yeah. Tomorrow we got a big socialist panel. We got Vosh coming on, Demon Mama, Sock Done Left, Hansa Harkir, and maybe a couple others. So yeah, check us out tomorrow on twitch.tv/tomfoolerypc at 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
Appreciate it, Prime.
Yeah, everyone, the link is in chat. Go check out Tom. Tom's a big supporter of this channel. We want to support him too, so please click that follow button. Please. Have a good one, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, I apologize for interrupting you. Please go ahead.
I was just like, while I'm not an antinatalist, and an antinatalism is the idea that it's immoral to have kids. While I'm not that, I think it's morally neutral to have kids. I'm definitely sympathetic to this view. I'm also sympathetic to the Buddhist view of the world. There's a Buddhist saying, it says something like, the only guarantee in existence is suffering. Like, it seems as if like a lot of existence is not great. And it seems interesting to me that we would like force existence onto this poor child that has this horrible disability just because we want to be like morally consistent or whatever. But sorry, I've been talking a lot.
No, it's fine.
Yeah,
go
I
ahead,
mean-
finish your point, please.
I mean, I think maybe maybe there would be a distinction on the degree to which whatever the parent is aborting the child for like affects the child and their happiness themselves. But I think specifically, at least very specifically for the autism case, it seems to I believe it's the case that that autistic children in general are a lot of the times can end up being very happy people. Obviously they have to deal with some like discrimination, for example, in the current society and all that, but that's more of a societal problem and not so much a problem with the actual disability itself. So maybe that would be another kind of line of distinction, because maybe I would be like I could potentially be convinced with a degree of the antinatalist argument, but I don't think it applies particularly well to autism.
As somebody who's typically pretty in favor of this stuff, I will totally concede that autism is the single most morally complex issue in here. I think that a vast majority of other genetic illnesses are far more cut and dry. We can all agree that, like, people should probably be born with like properly sized hearts. Having a heart that pumps at 1/10 the speed is like not good for anybody, right?
Or we could just replace that heart with a mechanical one eventually, or something like that.
Yeah.
I kind of get to transhumanism as well, but I just think that, like, to the abortion argument, for the person who's against them aborting because they have a certain mental disability, are you pro-choice or pro-life?
Yeah, you beat me
Yeah,
too.
I'd
Oh,
say
my bad, sorry.
No, you're good.
Uh,
It's funny. It's just funny we were both gonna ask the same question.
Yeah, are you pro-life or pro-choice?
Yeah, so I mean, I am still kind of iffy on it. Currently I'd lean towards, because I can't make a good I don't think I can make a good enough argument to be the pro-life. That's why I was saying specifically in this case where the terms have been laid out, where the mother wouldn't have aborted the child unless if they were not autistic, that was the only reason why I felt confident enough to say that this would I would probably view this as a morally wrong thing to do. But in general, I'd say I would fall on the pro-life.
Are you like, is this from like a utilitarian standpoint, or is it just a deontological standpoint where it's like this is a good within itself, or we should allow abortion because it's good for wider society? Because I can make the argument that hypothetically speaking, the aborting it because it has autism or some sort of mental disability or physical disability is, you know what, it's better for society, so we're going to do it.
It's definitely not a utilitarian perspective I take with these. For me, it's more along the lines of I think that we have to. It seems to be the case that we have to treat life with some degree of intrinsic value. Otherwise, we're kind of saying that life is pointless, and obviously we can't really live that way because of the fact that we're conscious. It more comes down to the fact that I'm more pro-life because I think it's a very, very tricky issue when you get into it, and I have not come up with an argument strong enough to say either way, and I think probably the safer way to lean is pro-life.
So I gotta let some other people in, but we can come back to this definitely. But thank you, Salty Sam. Excuse me, I apologize. There's strings, and then we'll go to strings. And then Ty Prius is here. Thank you, buddy, being here. I want to make sure he has room to say something if he wants to. Oh, and then off of that, you Friday as well. Go ahead, Salty. Sorry, excuse me. And then go ahead, strings. I'm all messed up today. Sorry, strings, please.
You're good, Prime. So let's see. That's Salty Sam. So I didn't hear the combo. I was typing. I have a half brother who is autistic, and Michael, while he's different, and I mean when I say different, like I don't know the dude. I didn't even know I had a brother till I was 19. Dude's different, but he's cool. He's fun to talk to at 2 a.m. He's a cool guy. Should people be allowed to kill him before he's born and because they chose to have a kid? And you choose to put a penis in a vagina, create a kid. Should you have the power to end that life that you created through that miracle of procreation? Fuck no. Not unless that child is going to cause the mother to die. And then that's a question. It's not on your politics. That's between nobody but you and the person that you created the kid with. Fuck everybody else.
Wait, hold on. I actually totally disagree. We would have to make that. We have to do with that. That we totally have to make that a civil law. If we can if we agree that there are educations that abortion's okay, but in the vast majority of the time that it's not okay, then like yeah, something like that cannot just be between two people. We have to make societal judgments on that.
But you want to abort a kid who's...
I think we're moving towards the abortion argument.
But we've been hovering that for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because the question you're bringing up just goes for everybody, right? I mean, like I have 3 sisters. I love them all. They're wonderful people. Should people have had the right to abort? I mean, yes. That's just the answer that I'm always here to give, right? I value the autonomy and just the preference. I value the preferences of a living, breathing adult human being than a fetus in every single case scenario.
But you can call it a fetus all you want, but in the end, it will grow up to be somebody who lives and breathes just like you and I. And they may be stupid. My brother, that's an interesting dude. I mean, I'm not calling my brother stupid. Let me finish. I'm not calling my brother stupid. He's just, if you look at the way that I process the world and the way that my brother, my half brother, processes the world, I didn't even know he was a thing till I was in my late teens. I get abortion. There's reasons to abort. I mean, for sure. God, that's a hard topic to talk about. But hearing the word autistic and abortion, to abort somebody because their brain may not work the same way as yours, My brain doesn't work the same way as any of you guys, and neither do any of you work the same way as any of you else. Prime's works directly different than mine. Same as Three Glad or Not Jugsy, Sevatar. I can go on down the road. We all think differently. But to take my life because I think differently than you, that just makes you a cold-hearted bastard.
So the problem is that it's not just that the person thinks differently than them, right? We're not, when we're talking about not just abortion, but abortion for specific like mental, neurodivergencies, right? We're not talking about thinks differently. We're talking about like specific like differences in the way that the human is made up, right? And beyond this goes back to the abortion argument of like, again, why you've
But
yet
that
to make
was my half brother. Your argument, no matter where you may take it,
So
you're
like, I
gonna
have
beat my half brother.
Yeah, so I mean, again, I have a nephew that has Down syndrome as well, and so I'm making an
Your
argument that my
brother,
sister
though,
should.
right?
I'm,
Like,
I'm making an argument that my sister should have
why?
been allowed to abort my nephew if she wanted to.
Yeah,
But
so
if
the-
your
so
nephew-
let me try it a
if your
different way.
nephew is alive, and that you have had the time on this earth, in your time on earth, to experience that interaction with that person, rather than discarding them like a piece of trash.
Oh, sorry, could you repeat your question?
Sure, your nephew. You said he has Down syndrome. Aren't you happy for the time, the very short, the blink of an eye that you have had on earth with that person and your interactions and your love for that person, rather than discarding them as a piece of trash because of what they may become?
You're talking about just two timelines that don't interact. I literally, if it would have been the timeline which my sister had aborted the baby, I would not have had any of this love. I would not have had any of these experiences to lose. I live in the timeline in which my sister did not abort the baby. She had the baby. I've met the baby. I love him. So of course, this is like saying like, if I had a PlayStation 5, would I be mad if someone stole it? Well, yes, I would. But I don't have a PlayStation 5, right? We're talking about never buying a PlayStation 5 in this thing, right? So
it's
But that's an inanimate object, and a PlayStation 5, if you prick it, it does not bleed.
That's
Sure.
not even the same analogy.
Go ahead, Tiberius. It's your turn.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Like, here's the problem I have with this particular conversation, and then I'll just drag it off somewhere else. Is that this conversation is basically an exercise in the argument of causality. The person you abort could be literally the next Hitler, but he could also be the proverbial savior of humanity. Like, you don't fucking know, right? You can make assumptions, yada yada yada. The conversation is largely pointless, in definitive terms. You can argue about morality. I don't know if that's the best thing to do on a panel of 11 people at 3 a.m., but whatever. The conversation that I did think was neat that could have gone down was where Kobe was referencing like genetic engineering and the viability of that. I figured on a panel full of leftists that you guys would absolutely love the idea that the rich were going to be the guinea pigs for this.
I think why would the rich be the guinea pigs? It would start with the poor, right? Like, why would they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what the rich would do in this situation is they would probably like experiment on the poor for a while secretly, and then eventually they'll get what they need out of the poor people. So they can.
They wouldn't need to do it secretly. They just use their for-profit prisons to test people.
Yeah, the problem is that like if genetic engineering starts with the rich, it's not trickling down. Okay, they're creating Elysium, they're creating an orbiting space station, and they're creating a breed of super gods in which they can finally say that the rich are genetically better than all other groups. It's not good. I don't think that's good.
Hell. But anyway, like the abortion argument will always boil down to people's base moral axioms. I wouldn't use any of the arguments people here are making. I just make the argument that abortion has been empirically proven to be beneficial to wider society, beneficial from we can get into that if you guys want. I don't give a shit if it's a life from one person's perspective. I don't consider that thing a person. And again, it just provides utility to society, so I'm gonna fucking do it. Genetic modification is similar in the same vein. I believe that as someone brought up, the genetic modification of plants and animals in the past has proven that very beneficial to society. I see no reason why, with proper testing and proper use of the scientific method, along with getting a proper consensus on it and medical practices, we can eventually get the same thing for genetically modifying humans on a larger scale with a universal healthcare system that would be allowed for every single person. Because why not have just an entire race of transhumanists? Why not?
Because if you don't draw societal and ethical bounds, you have Tuskegee experiments.
This is the ethical bounds. My ethical bounds.
No, you didn't hear what I said. Tuskegee experiments, right?
I heard
a select few choosing to do medical experiments upon a minority without
Sure.
general consent and
Yeah, but
governance. We the
sabotage are talking about consent, so it's not an analogous thing.
correct consent versus non-consent.
You're correct. It's not analogous.
We'll get that back to that in just a second. Friday Living, you had your hand up previously.
I kind of forgot what was going to.
Okay, that's fine.
I feel you. I totally feel you, man. That conversation went so
I mean,
far
we were
to
talking
the
about genetics, and then it went to abortion. Like we were just talking about whether people want to genetically remove if they have autism from.
Yeah,
the
can I
baby.
just-
not kill them, not kill the baby, just see if they want to remove it? Like what the fuck.
Yeah, and I would just like to say maybe just something hopefully not forgotten in this entire conversation is that this is something, abortion is something that how can I say this, disproportionately affects women more than men. Just I'm just saying. So
Let's okay, let me ask you a question. And I see your hand there, Sam. Let me ask you a question then. So we talked about autism, right? Which is something that people find undesirable, right? An undesirable trait that will cause a person to have a less will often will make it more difficult for a person to have a more a fulfilling life. Now, oftentimes people on the spectrum do have fulfilling lives, so it's great, right? But it makes it more difficult for that child to grow up within our society, right? For better or worse, that might be the case. Okay, so wondering if we would select for that. But like the big argument, right? The argument that's been around for a long time is what if you could select for children that are straight or not, right? Like, would you take that option then? Under with that same thinking, yeah. Well, what about that?
I'd love to answer this question. I as a gay, I personally believe that it's probably I think nature and nurture are inextricably linked when it comes to gender expression and sexuality, right? It's not surprising to me that less people self-identify as bisexual, non-binary twin spirit in like Yemen, because Yemen has an extremely conservative culture, or pick any, Mexico, pick any country, right? So it makes sense to me. It seems as if you live in a country in which it is societally accepted to be open with your sexuality, open with your gender expression, that the experimentation, trying new things, that this is normalized, that more people are going to do it. I don't think that we could actually edit a person's sexuality. I don't think there's a gene to edit. I don't think that switch exists in the human brain. I'm pretty sure.
Off, Toby, but are you sure? Because I
Am
gotta
I
tell
sure? I don't know, but I'm pretty sure.
Let me preface it, and I'm gonna apologize in Prime. Thank you for putting up with my antics. I'm still learning how you guys do it on this shit. You do it well. Kobe, here's my question. Yes, I can. I could edit out a gay gene. You said I'm a gay. Now that's kind of a shit to come into a conversation with, but if that's how you want to call yourself, let's assume you're homosexual. You like the same sex. Let's say that I, as a government power, I'm a white guy. I've got white privilege, right? Let's say that I could actually edit you the fuck out. Are you saying that cannot happen? Because if you deny the existence of science, then
yeah, so I don't think there's like a gene in the body that dictates gender or sexuality that we could. I'm saying there's no switch to flip. I mean, you could edit me, you could kill me, right? You could round up all gay men or whatever, right? But I'm saying is like from a genetic modification point of view, I don't think there's a switch to be flipped.
So can I just jump in here real quick?
With you that I'm trying to argue on the ethics and the morals of should that even be allowed, i.e. gene editing. Take China, right? Q-tips and buttholes. That should be a fucking meme.
I think it will be.
So with the great experiment going on right now, and whether or not this channel would agree with it, I'm going to tell you, China is taking all that data in, they're putting it in a database, and they're having fun with deoxyribonucleic acid, if that's what the hell the acronym is from school.
Yep.
DNA, right? I'm going to tell you, be careful where you allow the government to say that this kind of murder is okay and that kind of murder is not, because you can flip from abortion to genocide real quick.
Oh boy.
And with the experiments going on in our world, how we tear each other apart just on race, creed, color, religion, how fucking awful we as a people, we're fucked up. We do evil shit.
Just to ground your argument for a second, just so I can understand it. Are you saying that, like, if we accept that abortion is okay, if we accept that the government or individuals deciding what life is and isn't okay, that this is like the first step down the path that leads us to deciding that like a group of people is not okay to exist?
No, what I'm saying is take Senator Manchin, Joe Manchin. For those my fellow Americans who are on chat right now, if you don't know, if you're a Democrat, you in the majority. Thanks to Kamala, she's the vice president. Joe, he's in a coma. That fucking asshole. I don't know how that many people.
Okay, we're
voted
getting
for
lost.
him.
Sorry, we're getting lost, buddy.
I
Please,
know
let's
we
stay
are,
focused.
but this is where it goes. The minority prime. Right now, I'm vulnerable as shit, my friend. I'm a conservative. I'm white. I'm privileged as fuck. Not in the traditional sense that we as a society are heading to, but I'm privileged in the sense that I was born in this country. I've got.
Please,
God bless you,
we've
man.
got a lot of other people who want to talk. So get to the point so that we can. I got other people. Go on. So finish your point.
Actually, Prime, I gotta go. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for being here,
Prime
Saboteur. I really
recommend.
appreciate it.
It was good talking with you,
Great day.
Saboteur.
Yeah, have a good one. All right. So just finish your what? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to ask you to repeat the question because I feel like we got derailed
I
so
don't
hard.
even know where we are right now. It was okay. So let's try it again. Would you select? And it doesn't have to be for gay people. So I was going to say, like, would you select in terms of children for straight or gay? Right? If we say that we'll do that for autism, then will you do it for straight or gay? Another one is for like people who are blind or deaf. Right? There are like there's a large and like very varied and complex sorry, I keep saying blind and deaf community, right? There are some who are like, I would actually, and within those communities, I want my child to be deaf, or I want my child to be blind, right? Because then they interact with the world the way I do, right? Then they're part of this culture, right? I don't definitely for the deaf community. That's a lot of how people see things. Would it be okay for them to select for a deaf child, right? Like, oh, I don't want this child doesn't will have hearing, so maybe not this child, right? Does that make sense, Captain A. Jones?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to add like a little information onto that, I think that it's also interesting, like right now, if you donate to a sperm bank, the people who donate to sperm banks are overwhelmingly like white MIT graduates who are over 5'11" and and have like a whole ton of other traits, and like these are the only people they accept. So like currently, for like, I know it's not the same thing, but it's kind of like what we have, currently that you can manipulate going forward into future generations. I mean, we're already kind of allowing this, whether that's right or not. God, I mean, I have a really tough time, saying like, I guess as a non-blind person, saying like it should be okay, because it's like it just feels like you're robbing somebody of one of their senses before they've had a choice, like and they never had a choice to make that decision. It just feels wrong to me.
So hold on, sorry, we got a lot of people. We got to go in line. Sorry. So let's go. Salty Sam. Let's go. Three Glad, Friday Living, and then we'll go to you, Strawberry.
Yeah, for sure. So I think to strong arm the case for selecting out the autism gene, even though I'm not sure if I agree with it, I think it is 100% significantly different to if you were to select for like a gay or straight gene, assuming it exists, because raising a child with autism is like provides an additional challenge in and of itself besides just the challenge of raising a child, and whereas this isn't as much of a thing that you're seeing with that you would see with a parent who is raising a kid who is gay versus a kid who is straight. You might have a like a small hurdle to overcome just in, I don't know, accepting the fact that they're gay, or in helping them out if they're like discriminated against, but it's nothing to the degree of the difficulties you're going to face in raising an autistic child. So I think those are two very different things, and I think that most people would probably agree that it probably wouldn't be good to select everyone to be straight, although maybe a case could be made that I don't even know if a case could be made. I don't even know.
Let's go to Three Glad, then Friday, then I said Strawberry. Go ahead.
Okay, so Strings, like when you started making your points, a lot of your points seem to like fall on that like abortion is bad because it's murder in your eyes, and like it from the counter perspective, like people don't believe necessarily that this is like a living, breathing person yet. They're still technically like, I know this is gonna sound like really mean of me, but technically they could be defined as like a parasite to the people who don't want to have them around. So
Can
like
I point you real quick? I want to agree with you, and that's that's such the beauty of this argument, man. And people who get pissed off, I'm glad they all went to bed in the adult. Your counterpoint, man, it's beautiful.
And then
rape, rape. That is a great example. Should the baby be aborted? That's not on you. That's not on me. That's not on the husband. That's on nobody but the victim as to that decision. And if they choose that, well, that's the answer.
And
that's my answer to you. I'm gonna
So-
shut
wait,
up.
so- oh, so you're saying
I'm
pro-life, though?
Well,
What?
Kobe, can I just finish my thing, Kobe? Just like also like as far as fear for like allowing like what the state can or can't choose in response to like I don't think anyone's advocating to let the state decide like, oh, you're about to birth a child who like may or may not have autism, so us the state are gonna hop in, or you're about to birth a child who may or may not be gay, so us the state are gonna hop in and abort it for you. Like, no, we're advocating for the parents with like as technology grows and as we can find more and more about our future children. We just like want the parents to have the right to, yeah, that seems to be it. That's it. So like I don't think China's gonna come in and tell us to like kill our babies or whatever because they have certain things.
Yeah, I think this is more a conversation about like the individuals making individual choices for their children.
So let's go to Friday Living.
So yeah, I think depending on the sort, I really think they should make decisions of whether they're going to get cancer more than if they're going to be gay or straight. I don't think that really helps anything. Honestly, I think the direction we should go is they kind of take it in an anime take, I guess. If we look at Ghost in the Shell, right, and they have cyber brains and things like that, and it kind of goes in and explores this aspect where some people are fully prosthetic and some people are half prosthetic. So we'll be able to pick and choose where either, some kids will want to choose to be blind, even though we have the technology to make them not blind and things. So yeah, it comes on the individual aspects of it, but I think straight or not straight is just so weird. That we should just be if they have cancer or not or something, not straight or not straight or something.
Okay. Strawberry.
I don't. I know this is a genetics argument, but I find it hard to separate from the abortion topic, because if you say that a parent can end the life of a child, meaning before it's born, the parent can choose to deny it the right to any life. If you give the parent that right, then it's hard for me to argue that the parent shouldn't have a right to modify his skin color or his hair, something that has a far less significant impact and doesn't deny it the right to life. So if you can kill a child, then yeah, you should. Then you can alter its hair color, or if it's gay or straight, or if it has autism or not. I don't see how you can make the argument against the two. Now, my personal position, I would say no, you can't kill the child. So I would be against abortion, and then going into the genetic manipulation. Even though I'm against it, if I was for it, then I would only limit it to life threatening or severely life modification, so a condition that would severely modify the child's life. But I think that the bad part about that is, and the part that's you can't really stop, is that eventually it's going to get to the rich, it's going to get to the elite, it's going to be privatized. So if we open that bag, no matter what we feel like, the millionaires, they're going to be modifying their children. They're going to be deciding, what skin color they are, what eye color they are. Like if we allow it, then it's going to eventually fall into that sector of the rich and the elite.
Strawberry. And to make myself sound stupid, Prime, I got to shut up at some point. But check it. It boils back to my position last time that I kind of stutter out on. It's all about God, your faith, or even if you don't have any faith, who cares? I don't care what you believe in. But in the end, we are but a speck of dust. And if you think about it, gene editing, what you're talking about, gay, black, white, brown, a can of skull because I'm a fucking dude who lives on cancer, whatever. The minute that you diminish any form, aka justice and injustice anywhere, it's
Okay.
injustice
Sorry,
everywhere.
we're a little lost here. Hold on. But thank you. Hold on. I just want to focus, and for the remaining time we have, we got some people in line. But thank you, buddy. I think you're a little lost in the weeds now, buddy. But Tiberius, you had a comment you wanted to make, and I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah, sure. So I don't know how many of you guys are Star Trek fans here, but Star Trek actually explores some of this very, very well. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds as far as where one begins and one another ends, because Star Trek, I mean, at least the show writers were really big into a universe that was against genetic engineering. But then it's also, if you guys like Geordi LaForge, he literally is born blind, and he has been bionic, or he has the visor in TNG, and then when he gets to the movies, he has bionic implants. Like, there's wonderful episodes that explore that character where they talk, or he specifically talks about being born blind, what it means to have that that ailment, if you will. And then is it a good thing? How was it good in the way that they went to change that, or to account for that, or what have you? If anyone actually knows what I'm talking about here, I'd love love to engage with you on that one.
Yeah, I love it. I love this topic because, one, Star Trek is great. Two, I always loved Geordi LaForge. He was a really fun character. And three, yeah, I think it really touches on exactly what we're talking about. Yeah. Like, what are our options here? And this reminds me of the debates about that now disgraced South African runner. He was for the Olympics. He had lost his legs. You know what I'm talking about. He had the blades
Ooh, yeah.
for legs. Yeah, I don't remember his name, but he's disgraced now because he murdered his wife. But all right. But yeah. Anyway, talking about like the advantages that might give you, right? People were saying at first, well, this guy, I mean, he's got those blades for legs, right? Like, that's gonna make him better than other runners. And it was a serious talk about keeping him out of the Olympics altogether, again, before the murder. But turns out, spoiler alert, he came in like 5th or 6th place when he actually did get a chance to compete. So there was that. But understanding the place of these advancements in our society, right? Like Geordi LaForge, that the Tiberius was mentioning, right? His visors, he could see much more, right? He could see all kinds of things with beyond like the normal light spectrum, right? And you could see how this
can see it all.
Yeah, he can see it all. He can see it all, right? Does this blind person have an advantage on us, right? There's a person without legs who's using prosthetics. Does he have an advantage of running? I don't know, but like, we'll have to decide these things. What do y'all think?
I mean, advantage can be looked at with Data, right? Because Data had all those advantages, but he was kind of emotionally stunted.
I love actually. There's a bit of an episode where they explore this with Geordi, and they wire up the visor to the computer's main viewer screen, and Picard's looking at Geordi's visor view, and he's just like, "Geordi, what's that?" He's like, "Oh, that's Commander Riker." Like they literally, the way that the screen had actually shown it, we wouldn't even recognize it, kind of thing. So in a way, like I think the end of that episode is largely he says something along the lines of, "I see differently than you, and that I see many things, but that doesn't mean that I see what you see. I will never see a sunset in the way that you see it." And it was a wonderful episode, and it really explores that even if you have these bionic upgrades or these changes, is that do you actually get the quote unquote human experience? And that that was the like the moral viewpoint of that question. It was supposed to make you ask is, do they? We don't know the answer to that question, but that's the wonderful thing about Star Trek. It makes you ask those questions.
I actually think that's an incredibly interesting question. I think that, as somebody pointed out earlier, like Data is another good exploration of this. On its face, you would think that Data would be not very a human character at all. He's a computer person. He just he doesn't really understand his stuff.
An android,
But one thing you know. Huh?
An android. So if people understand what you're talking about. He's an android. Yeah, go ahead.
And so but you see that in the social interactions, in the effort to try to understand humans and other cultures, there is an extraordinary humanness in this, being confused, being the outsider, not understanding, having to learn these social roles, or something that's inextricably human, that's expressed by this non-human entity. And I think that gets at something, which is that perhaps in a way, what it means to be human is this kind of dealing with limitations. We are human beings. We have a limited amount of life. We can see a limited amount of color spectrum. There are only certain sounds we can hear, etc. And being a human in a way is kind of finding your way through the world, through society, with those various limitations and advantages and stuff. And so I think that in a way, I think that as we find our way through the dark forest of genetic modification and transhumanism, perhaps I think we'll find an even deeper humanity.
But isn't the genetic modification and the transhuman removing those limitations? So if the human experience is those limitations, then why are we eliminating those or moving to a society where we can, remove that limitation?
I suppose
that's in the Star Trek episode, in the Star Trek thing too. You remove all that, you get Q, don't you?
No. There's two different storylines that goes with that in Star Trek. The first one is Khan, right? Like what happens when you give people all these superior abilities, ambitions, whatever, and you get Khan Union Singh, which is horrible to say the least. And then there's another episode which I can't remember, like season 2 of TNG, is where they try it again, and there's a complication. I'm not going to go into it, but the long and the short is that do they get kind of what they're going for? Yes, but it begs a different question to where the complication that I was getting at was the immune systems of these people that they made actively kills the people around them. Anyone who wasn't augmented ends up actually destroying the average person. It begs the question of, can you be human while transcending human? That's the whole point of transhumanism. And the whole point is kind of yes, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to agree with yes. I feel like a big part of being human is striving to surpass your quote unquote human limitations. So I feel like doing that in whatever way you might think of it would just be an inclusion of like the human experience, in my opinion.
I'm going to derail just slightly on this one, but there's a wonderful storyline that's in another sci-fi, but it's Gundam, where Gundam Seed goes down the idea of like your coordinators and making superhumans and all that other thing, and the main villain for Gundam Seed actually ends up being Rala Crusade, which is like this super nihilist character that believes that this whole race to being, how do I put it? How did he put it? To go the farthest, to climb the highest, this race has just continually enables greater and greater suffering. And basically he goes full nihilist and he actually tries to destroy humanity when it's all said and done. Very interesting plot. I wish they wouldn't have fucked up that series, but I'm serious, man. They could have gone so well with it and they fucked it up. But it was a very interesting character because it's basically you have Kira Jesus Yamato, which is this super character is getting to do everything, but then the antagonist is Ral, who is basically like, you know what? Everything that we tried to do epitomized into you, and look where it brought us. You are the ultimate weapon of war. So it's a really interesting plot line, storyline, even though they goofed it up.
Yeah. First of all,
I did not mean to suck the oxygen out of the room. I'm
Ty,
sorry.
no, Ty. I was gonna thank you because I love the anime references. You know I love Gundam. Yeah, like I think there's a lot of reasoning. First of all, I think it's difficult to have this debate. It's difficult to have this debate when it comes to like genetic modification and cybernetification, right? Because when it comes to genetic modification, like all we have right now basically is sci-fi to go off of. Sure, we can do some fucking plants and shit, right? But like we haven't done anything like, as far as I can tell, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anything really extraordinary when it comes to humans, right? Like something that's like a real wow factor. So like. Our understanding of this, I think, mostly comes from like what like a sci-fi author comes up with, right? And then come up with some really dark shit. But maybe it could be the case that humans, right, our society will never actually discover how to do like the really cool shit, right? And same thing with cybernetics. Same thing with like space travel, right? It's like it could be the case that like we really cannot travel faster than light, like as we understand now, right? We can't travel faster than light, and there's no like subspace that we can go down, right? So like right now, like so many of our fears are for like dangers that may literally not exist, or for a type of technology that we are just not, our monkey brains are not smart enough to actually even access, right? And so like we're like basically scared over nothing. Does that make any sense to you guys?
It seems
No,
like
I'm 100% with you.
Well, like I am very like skeptical of just like pure progress narratives. I don't think like humanity's like a straight arrow of progress. I do think there's like, it's interesting to me that every time that there's like a era of like scientific development, there's always people that feel as if like whatever the new thing is going to be the thing that's like the linchpin that destroys humanity. Very famous. I think it's like a quote from like Homer or something like that, where he was talking about how like books are going to rot the minds because people will not have to remember things anymore. They'll just be able to read them, and you want to have to experience things. You'll just be able to read it in a book, right? And so it reminds me. I read a science fiction story, and I can't remember the name of it, but in the story, humanity develops like a teleportation field across the entire Earth, and so human beings can teleport to any spot on Earth. Like it's like the movie Jumper. You can just immediately teleport anywhere you want, instantaneously with no change to yourself. And so in this universe, culture, like geographic-based culture, completely breaks down. It doesn't matter at all if you're born in Japan or Korea or Senegal or Chicago, because you can just go anywhere. You can go spend some time in Abu Dhabi, go spend some time in Paris. It doesn't matter, right? And in the book, there are a lot of people that are really worried that like this is going to screw everything up, right? Because like people are not going to have culture, they're not going to have anything to like root themselves to their societies. But actually, the opposite happens. It causes a wellspring of culture because people are able to do everything. So I think that kind of shows. Like I think a lot of the times, scientific development, while it has negatives, I think a lot of the times it opens up far more doors than it shuts. So I'm pretty sympathetic to it.
Captain.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead and then go to Captain Jones.
What you said about the new scientific thing being the thing that like makes people like basically say that it's going to destroy like all of what it means to be human is so true. Like right now, it's the genetic modification possibility in humans. Before that, it was like vaccines. Vaccines were a super hotly debated thing. And then before that, it was the variolation of smallpox. People were even against that at the time, which was like the immunization before the introduction of the vaccine to it. It's crazy how people view these advancements as something as like immoral.
Heart surgery, or sorry, heart transplants, right? That was a big thing. That like this is immoral. Like how could
blood
you?
transfusions?
Yeah, blood transfusion.
Yeah, I've been thinking of like a Malthusian look in general. Robert Malthus was a social theorist that argued that the advanced modernity was making it so too much of the lower classes were breeding, and that things like heart surgery, blood transfusions, transportation, that like it's bad. He argued, why should everybody be able to read? Why should I have to talk to people that can read a book that barely understand it? Only the educated should be able to read these kind of things. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Captain A. Jones.
Yeah, so I just wanted to dovetail off of Tiberius about the new types and coordinates and Gundam Seed and just the UC Gundam as well, my man. So it was actually kind of interesting. So in those storylines, especially with, I believe it was the new types and the coordinates, they were discriminated against because of their like enhanced abilities cognitively and physically, and they were because they were the first ones pushed into space, they were essentially used as the kind of like slave labor, as the first pioneers out into like this brave new world where things were very deadly and life wasn't exactly certain. So it is interesting to think that like these abilities and these enhancements actually in this sci-fi story led to people actually discriminating against them.
Well, I was thinking about this, and I don't think we touched on this subject. With every advancement, there's going to be some setbacks. There's going to be, mistakes. There's going to be anomalies that happen. So I'm just thinking, if a mother has a child, and she makes the decision to undergo this genetic modification for her child, what if the child ends up deformed or worse due to the genetic modification? So now this child has to go through living their life, and his life is worse because someone made a choice for him before he was even born.
We'll go to we'll go to Ty, and then we'll go to Salty.
Sure. I want to tag the Gundam part a little bit because there's two different storylines. Actually, there's like multiple universes. The one with the new types is Universal Century, and the original like thought process between the writers who did that was the primary writer thought that once humanity escaped the bounds of gravity and Earth, is that we would transform, that it would unlock some kind of hidden potential in us, and that basically the new types are psychics. And it allows them to communicate like telepathically, emotionally, like their emotions and their thoughts and their feelings could, basically would be unlocked, and they could actually communicate that way. Really interesting. And then it gets really, really dark. And if anyone's actually bothered to watch Victory Gundam, you see where that storyline goes to shit. It goes to hell in a handbasket. Cosmic Era, which has the coordinators, was a little bit different. That whole premise is that humans basically genetically engineer people. And they took that approach. They took the instead of the awakening ascendants, they took the engineering ascendants. And that one's weird because they don't explore it enough. They give enough taste of it, but they don't really like heavy hit it to what the actual meaning behind the door is. But it explores the idea that basically this guy by 21 does everything. He graduates like MIT at like 16. He's a pro football player immediately out of college and just, absolutely mops the floor with everyone. Goes off to Jupiter, comes back, and all of a sudden he's just like, all right, so here's the trick. I was genetically modified in the embryonic form. He goes away to be like the hero of Earth to make the 7-year trip to Jupiter, comes back, and Earth is in hell. Because people are asking themselves, like, is this the right thing to do? How does this all boil out? Is this a good thing? And he ends up getting shot. Like Blue Cosmos, which are the people for, a blue and pure world. For the naturals, they actually shoot him.
Fuck! What if I wanted to watch Gundam?
It's good.
There's plenty of material. And by the way, you're not missing a lot on Seed because while there's a lot of good content kind of in the background, the story really goes to shit.
I don't know. I think you're being hard on Seed, but that's a different conversation.
Okay,
but go ahead.
Seed's kind of meh. Seed Destiny is horrible. Don't watch it. It's terrible.
So it's like spoiling like the season 8 of Game of Thrones. Then.
No, I don't agree with you here. I don't agree with you. His description of Seed. I thought Seed was going to be shit, but that was actually quite more impressive than I was more impressive than I thought it was. But we'll have to talk about some other time. Yeah. So like in talking about like I think it's really interesting, and we'll go to you next, Salty Sam, talking about like the backlash to these people, right? Like if there are successful modifications, like what does like the rest of us do? Like this is like was it Galaga, right? That's like the plot of Galaga right there. I like because there are people who are going to be left behind. What were you going to say, Salty?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on something that Tiberius mentioned earlier when he was talking about the character that had that really nihilist take. Something I thought was really interesting about that is um, something that maybe seems to be the case in my view of things, perhaps, is that it seems to be the case that um, the smarter we get, the more suffering we perceive, and I think this kind of comes down to the fact that um, the more you kind of understand, the more you know. The more things you know you're not doing right, and it seems to be the case that whenever we improve upon one thing, we just see three more things that we could be improving upon instead. um, so we perceive kind of an increase in suffering while simultaneously while we are improving ourselves, and I think that's something that's really interesting to kind of think about.
I think you brought up a good, interesting point, Prime. The idea of like how are folks that have access to any kind of modification versus folks that do not, how are these populations going to interact? And I think that the biggest mistake, just in general, of like globalism and global capitalism of the 20th century and going into the 21st century is like this exact thing: not dealing with like the malcontents, not recognizing that these systems don't benefit everybody equally, and then just and only focusing on those that that benefit very heavily. The example would be like NATO. Or not NATO, sorry, what's it called? NAFTA, the North of whatever, that trade deal, right? That's a very good trade deal that helped many places in Mexico rise out of poverty. There's a reason that many places in South America are doing much better than they were in the 1960s, right? But also, like, in reality, a lot of people got fucked over, a lot of people. And the response of the Bush or the Clinton administration at the time was just to be like, well, screw off. In the future you'll do better. Your kids will do better. So it doesn't matter what you feel like. But we find that is like the worst. That is what causes these anti-globalist movements. Is that globalism doesn't think about who doesn't win. It focuses on who wins. You think about Seoul, South Korea. You don't think about North Korea, etc. Right? And so I think that like if genetic modification is going to be a success for humanity, there has to be a give and a take. There has to be people that don't get advantages to or don't get access to this have to also be winning. And I think that the way that hopefully we can do this is that if we could somehow try to make global societies less competitive, I feel like this would not be as big of a deal. If people didn't feel like they were competing with the genetically modified, that they were just coexisting with them, and that they both had equal access to things, then I'm not sure how much it would matter.
Yeah, as long as capitalism is a thing where where there's an incentive structure, depending on how like good you are at like a given task that earns you money, and then that money translates to power, then I think it's going to be this huge dicey thing with people having like enhanced abilities.
I think
just look at like
just
look at like climate change right now, right? A lot of places, like in the 1990s, a lot of countries in the third world that didn't believe, that had very low rates of like climate change acceptance, their reasoning was they felt that it was kind of like a shitty scam by these Western nations. These Western nations use up all the oil, they fuck the earth, and then they're like, oh no, fuck you, Nigeria, you're not allowed to develop. And while it's like there's a truth to that, they're going to feel the same way if it's like you have a bunch of people from Belgium that have like genetically modified eyes, and then going and telling like a poor old woman from like Dakar, Senegal, that she can't get her cataracts fixed because we don't want to have international laws. That's not going to go over well. That person's not going to agree with you at all. You know what I mean? It's reasonably, right?
And I think this actually touches on something I was thinking about earlier, where if you are moving towards a society where some people are able to become genetically almost superior in a way because they're specifically selecting for what we view as better traits, it could potentially lead to a new form of kind of discrimination, because you are going to have the majority of people, at least at the start, who aren't able to do this genetic modification. So you're going to get a massive proportion of people who feel that they've essentially been screwed over by this, and they're going to see the people who have benefited from this in a negative light because of that, and it could potentially lead to a new form of like discrimination because of that, which would interestingly enough be targeted towards those who are getting the most benefit.
Yeah, I think this conversation is really interesting. The way Kobe phrased it, I had not actually. I mean, I thought somewhere along those lines, but I really like the way you phrased in terms of the competition between the two groups, and how that relates to current day society, right? Like using those trade deals. Again, it's the have versus the have-nots. But I don't know. I guess it was just a dynamic that you introduced here that I hadn't really thought of it that way. I don't know. I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
But
I actually have to head out because I got work to do.
Oh, I was just about to say that the stream is over.
Yeah, I'm super sorry.
I'm super sorry. Okay.
Yeah, have a good night, everybody.
Have a good one.
Have a good night. Good to see you again.
But yeah, thanks all for being here. I want to thank everyone who stopped by. And to the audience members tomorrow, remember we'll be streaming again. We'll have an open panel. It'll be a lot of fun. But I want to thank all the people who are here. Captain Nate Jones, you're streaming, right?
I am.
All right. Well, everyone, go follow Captain. Yeah, there we go. Captain Nate Jones. There's this link in chat. Yeah, check him out. You want to tell people about your stream?
Yeah, so thank you so much. I really appreciate you, Prom. I do stonk crap. I do stonks. I play video games, and as you probably have seen, I smoke a whole hell of a lot of weed. And that's kind of like my thing. I'm generally with the lefty takes, but I also try to entertain all opinions, as long as those are like left of center. I'm just kidding. I entertain all opinions. Come by, drop me a follow. One love.
Okay. And so we'll get to Tiberius in a second. But does anyone else stream here? No? Okay. But thank you all for being here.
I'm starting to, but I haven't really done it that much.
Maybe soon.
Okay. Well, we know we guys are up and running. But thank you for being here. And I want to give special thanks to our good friend Tiberius, who's blowing it up there on his own channel. You were doing some interesting stuff there, Tiberius. Tell the world about what you're doing there.
All right, so I am Tiberius D. I have a company and a podcast called Geopolitics with Tiberius D, where basically me and my team go around and talk about each particular country, give like a little snapshot of what its history is, what its geography is, whether that geography helps that country, whether it hurts it, and what the future I think that's coming down the pipe for that particular country. Every now and again, I used to do open panels. I don't really do that anymore, but every now and again we'll do one. Most of you guys might like Connor from Prime's Monday. He's usually with me there on the right wing panel on Sundays, but that's really all that I do regarding that. Prime beat me in the marketplace of ideas, so I just let him have it. But anyway, if you want something that's particularly that, or you want to have a one-on-one with me, just check out my channel. I'm actually on the other side of the aisle, so if you want a little bit of a different take, different opinion, feel free to hit me up.
Again, thank you, Ty. Ty used to be here a lot on this channel. Really was great talking with him. So we want to thank Ty. I want to support Tiberius. I put his link in chat. Please, everyone, give him a follow. Give the guy a follow. We want to give him our support. I am going to send you off to my friend, who is not political at all. I'm going to send you off to my friend Shower. We'll be back tomorrow. It'll be great. So come back. It'll be awesome. I don't know. But yeah, be kind to Shower. She's a really nice woman, nice human being. And always been very kind to me. So we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye.